All right, guys, before we get too far into it, I wanted to say hit that subscribe button if you like what we're doing here and want to see this thing keep growing. If you want to help the channel, help all of us get the best guests we can possibly get, hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. It goes a long way. Let's get to the video. Let's freaking start. So Jim and Brett, kind of the Mustang guys, number 3 overall fastest drag and drive car of 2023. TX2K winners and runner-ups throughout the years and all kinds of good stuff. Fastest green S-197 Mustang Coyote streetcar in Florida.
Got that one.
I was like adding qualifiers. I was like, how many micro records can I tack onto him? To
Big micro record, yeah.
Just keep adding them. And Jim has like the fastest 850 white, 850 roll cage, stock front
control arms, yeah.
How do you add qualifiers to your car to make, like, I try to add a lot to mine to make myself feel special.
I know.
It's kind of part of it.
I go the opposite. I say like, man, there's a lot of people that add a lot of stuff to make them feel good. I'm like,
Yeah, but we need to. We spend so much money. We want to make ourselves feel a little good here and there.
I mean, isn't it a little degrading though? You know, you just take it in. You're like, am I that good?
A little bit. I haven't put up any trophies on the wall either, and I have quite a few. So I've been trying to. I don't want to make anybody that comes near feel bad.
Yeah.
You do have a lot of trophies.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's respectful. It's respectful.
There's like a couple trophies that nobody even showed up for the class that I won.
Minor details. Micro record, fastest of the day.
Nobody remembers that nobody else was in the class. So 2023, let's start talking about freaking drag and drive because that was a fun deal. I got to chase all of that and watch you guys. I got to spectate from a car also in competition. Is how I saw it.
Right. Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, we built that car intention to do a drag and drive, and we got it done, the winter of that year before, and it was first ones in Florida. And what's easier than that for us, being that the furthest track away from us was 3 hours away. So no matter where you were going to have a failure or something, because we weren't really tested at that point for drag and drive. The car had done a bunch of drag racing, but it's far from a stock Mustang as far as driving it goes, 1,000 miles or whatnot.
Yeah, that was crazy. What do you do after that deal? Like how much did you go through after to get it where you were like, okay, it's back to like what I think is ready to compete in World Cup type of car?
Well, it was dirty.
Yeah.
We
had a lot of oil.
We a lot of oil. So I revisited the O-ring failure on the oil pump, and it's just kind of the design of it. So for now, we're going to keep a spare in case that happens again. We ended up changing the engine after that because we were supposed to change the engine before that race because that engine was like from my other car. We put it in to get the car going. And then we did the drag and drive. So we did change the engine after that race because we had the other one ready at that point. Other than that, it was just a lot of cleaning because it just got dirty.
That's what I thought about was like just a car with that many like race car parts, like Heim joints and stuff like that. So different than like a bushing car where like. Yeah,
like, everyone says that. I always have extras with me. I went through and checked them all. They were all fine. I think I changed No, I didn't even change the anti-roll bar links because we disconnected that every time.
Yeah, we disconnected every time.
Yeah, repack like the front wheel bearings just because there's not a lot of grease in there.
Man, you make it sound so easy going average of 680s on a drag and drive over 1,200 miles.
674, I think, was our average. It was cool.
But you got to take it back, right? I mean, when we got the car, right, we got it as a chassis, right? So we knew what we wanted to do with the car before we even had the car, honestly. So to have that, to set it up exactly how we wanted it to be, we knew it was going to be drag and drive oriented. Right?
Yeah, it's a fuel system, cooling system, all the big failure points that most people have, which are failure ports in a race car too. So they're all systems that should work well normally. I mean, a lot of race cars maybe don't have cooling systems, but I believe that's benefiting the engine more than it would hurt the engine. So weight would be the only advantage for removing a cooling system, in my opinion.
Dude, the Coyotes do pretty well though without cooling for like a race car, right? Like if you had like a big block or small block Chevy, like they're kind of, I don't know, like on one hit.
Cylinder heads, honestly. Oh. They don't run water, don't run the right water.
Yeah, I have no intention of running the engine without water in it.
Not even at World Cup?
Even if it just went, no. I'm gonna run it with the water in it.
Yeah. Dang. And that's just kind of like a flex at that point because you could run it without it, and you probably could save 100 pounds, 200 pounds off the nose of the car.
How many months do I?
Yeah.
Every month I text Jim. It's like we should just make a race trim for the car. So it has a 12-gallon stainless steel fuel cell on the back.
You know, what was it? 38
It's
pounds
38
empty.
pounds empty.
Just the shell. No fuel pump, no fuel hat.
Just because
38 pounds.
OCD and wasn't going to make it out of aluminum with ethanol and style fuels and it going bad and eating itself alive.
That does seem overkill.
Cable drive, the fuel pump cable's like 18 pounds.
Yeah, I think if you've never held one of those things, it's honestly like a little sad because you're like, wait, this has to go in the car?
Right. I'm like,
it's just a cable.
You know, then it holds almost 3 gallons of water in a cooling system. So, I mean, if it did make a race version, I'd probably just make a smaller cooling system. So I could maybe lose a gallon of water or so, 10 pounds is 10 pounds at that point,
Fuel tank up
or 8
front
pounds.
would be cool too, just because you get rid of the cable drive, you get rid of the extra lines, the weight in that, but it's...
But at that point, if, it's fast already.
Yeah. How much faster do you want to go?
Obviously, we're going to try and go faster. We have a couple things in the works for fuel system-wise, a couple neat things to get some weight out of the car. I've been this summer trying to lose 100 pounds of the car's weight because it was like drag and drive and up until just now. I mean, it was 3,050 pounds with me is what we always race it at.
Which is crazy because anybody that looks at that car would probably say it's not.
Yeah,
I mean one piece front end.
Yeah, that
two-piece. It has been declared a two-piece.
It was determined.
Yeah.
If anybody was to pick up that front end, they'd be like, "Oh, that's a disadvantage."
Yeah, but
That's what would happen.
yeah, it's like a Boston Whaler fiberglass front. But so 3,050. It's not heavy. It's a light S197. It's a big car. But it's not 2,500 pounds like, a lot of people are like, oh, that car's 2,500.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, that's pretty light. But if I can get it at 2,950, our fastest ET was at 3050. So if I can get 100 pounds out of it, it's just going to be free ET. That's all I look at it as.
But you already 60 foot so well. So like I look at somebody like Garrett's cars who's heavy and doesn't 60 foot as well as you, that's where he would probably gain a lot. And I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking about it wrong. But
it's going to be everywhere, no matter what, you're moving weight. Yeah, I mean, all your ET, the reason the 60 foot matters so much is because it's shorter, all the ET's in the front, right? So we're looking at, 330, so the lighter car's going to be faster 330, which makes it faster everywhere else.
We saw that last year at FL2K when you two raced each other and you can short track super hard and then just all of a sudden...
two cars running the same ET, but you can see the difference where it's made up on the racetrack.
Yeah, once that horsepower once the horsepower was the factor, it was just like, oh, okay, here it goes.
Got big blocked,
That was a good race.
It was. It was fun. We were nursing a head gasket on that run, so that was the first time I ever ran that car quarter mile. Was at FL2K that year. That was the second time or the third time it was ever even on the track. So we were still learning in the car very much at that point.
We went super new
670, and we were that was the goal for the car for building it. So we were super stoked, and then it started pushing a head gasket the run before that. It made some coolant pressure. It made 30 pounds, and it never makes coolant pressure. And we're like, oh, crap. Guess we're done.
Yeah,
but then it was like, well, I'm going to race. Just move the warning to 50 PSI instead of 30 PSI. And luckily it held in and didn't do
Thankfully, you guys have good relationship with your engine builders.
Yeah, Joe knows. I don't even have to call him. I hit the final button on the keypad. It just turns off all the warnings in the Motec, and then just send that baby down there.
I love that route though. Is there's a way to turn off the safeties for when you're in that final position where you don't want a safety and your oil pressure doesn't matter anymore because
I want to make that.
I don't actually have that button, but we joke about it all the time. But I'm also in control of the safeties on my car, so I just put them to where they need to be. And for me, it's a safety thing at that point. Like if I don't want to make a mess at 210 miles an hour,
that is fair as well,
and crash. I'm more worried about fire and safety than I am the mechanical parts.
Yeah, fire's not fun.
That's my fear all the time. I'm no, I'm just trying to keep this thing not.
You were with
fire.
me on that pass when I was on fire. You were.
You have experience.
Yeah, you were in front of me. That was qualifying at TX2K in 2022, 2021-ish, something like that.
Pictures were pretty cool.
Yeah, they're great pictures.
Great pictures. It's like a wheelie, It's great to see it as long as it doesn't come down.
And then the next year I went runner-up, so it was it kind of evens out. Mm-hmm. I was when you were building that new car, I will be 100% honest. I was worried for you guys because I was like, he had that so dialed in that I was like, can you kind of replicate the lightning in a bottle you captured with Snot Rocket 1.0?
Sure.
And that was like a worry that I had for you guys, but I trusted that you'd figure it out, but I didn't think it'd be the second pass.
Well, I mean, and that's why we didn't change the mechanical combo any, right? Like the engine, at that point, even the turbo size, camshaft, like the transmission was from that car. Like it wasn't even a new one of it. It was the same. It was the exact one. So we knew that the car would make around 2,000 horsepower, and then we're just taking 500 pounds out of it, and then buying Joel Steele's whole chassis. I knew the car had the capability of, I watched the car a lot. I watched the way it moved off the starting line. It moved well. It didn't. Then I went and looked at the car and could tell it was a well-built car. So at that point, we changed some stuff on it, but nothing major. A couple things in the four-link and rear shock, but other than that, the chassis was built well. So we were just moving into a better chassis with less weight. So really, it made it pretty easy.
Yeah, it wasn't like too crazy geometry versus what you guys were kind of already dealing with, or was it?
That was our first four-link.
Well, yeah, it was my first four-link car, but
and parallel four-link too, not like
a
04 Mustang.
And I have a lot of good help in my corner with Joe Spetter, Eric LaFerrier. I have a lot of people around me that have been a lot faster or as fast as I've been going, so that helps too. If you have a question with someone, to be able to, your support system is really what makes you a good racer. There's no one person doing it all on their own. It's your tuner, your chassis guy. In our circumstance, it's us running the car all the time. We have a lot of help from a lot of people. Luckily, but luckily we're good enough to be able to take the advice and then utilize it. Rather, a lot of people will ask 5 people the same question, and until they get the answer they want. Yeah. Because the first one was too much work. Oh, I got to cut that out of the car and re-weld it. Let me ask this guy. Oh no, he says his car. His car works like this, and the other car worked like this, so we can do it.
I just want somebody to agree with me.
Right. Yeah. Well, you ask the question until you get the answer you want. Really. Yeah. The easiest one.
That's why I always call usually Jim, and I assume that he gets his information from the two of you. But you guys also kind of have a little bit of a cheatered up advantage where if one of you guys go with like 5 cars to the track, so what the track is doing because you just watched your whole team with similar builds do the same thing.
And the Mustang stuff sets a recipe now because we with my car and his car we've started from a stock car basically to my car now. So and went every step along the way. Stock motor, single turbo, twin turbo. So
the evolution was just we learned at every single stage.
So it's pretty once you have that stuff cataloged, it's like, okay, you do this, you need this, and then the car will run this. And then if it doesn't, something's wrong because it's like it should be doing this. It's not doing that.
Where do you pinpoint the problem?
And if you have a lot of horsepower, you can kind of figure out things. I feel like it's less important to be perfect when you have a lot of power to help you, I feel like that kind of helps a little. Like somebody with a little bit of power, like those guys that are like, stock unopened motors have to be so on the money with their chassis that they can't even
there's no.
Well, there's muscling a car down the track and finessing a car down the track, right? There's an efficient car and then someone that's just using horsepower to figure the rest out. And we're getting to that finesse point again with my car because we don't know when the block's going to leave the chat or the crank. It's going to.
Because at some point it's got to.
That is weird.
You can't just keep going.
That you guys haven't truly found that, even though you probably thought you found it 300, 400 horsepower ago.
Right, where you saw other failures on the internet or heard from some other people. But, to this point, my engine is wood.
Yeah, we're talking a sleeved stock aluminum block Coyote, right?
Yeah.
Sleeves in there.
And the deck surface is, a lot of people still weld the deck and do dry deck and all that stuff. It's still stock with all the cooling.
Shout out to Joe at Fast Forward.
Yeah,
man,
he built my engine too. For anybody listening, he built the 2J in my car, and I even think that he built the Garrett's Godzilla motor.
Yeah, he's up Garrett.
He built that,
and then James. He helps him with all of his stuff.
Jim's motor, which if you guys
all of ours
don't know, 2,000 horsepower, full weight street car.
He's a trooper.
that poor motor is like, we're moving this weight again. Oh, God.
Poor rear end.
Yeah, it's still on an 8.8, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna see after tonight.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
We're getting some weight out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, we try to move some things around and try to be smarter about it and not just
Like
It's got TBMs on it now, so that helps.
Finally, it can get to 3,500 and still like full trim. Yeah. It's like what my other car was.
Yeah, that's spicy weight though. That's a lot of weight to move just in a safety aspect. I think a lot of people don't realize. You do start to get into like, even they talk about that in class racing. They're like, oh, you can put 200 pounds on your car and run this class, and it's like that's not a viable option for safety.
No, it's really not. Well, yeah, and Jim's car doesn't have enough safety as it is. No.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them don't. It's just the progression, right?
Yeah, it's,
like,
cars
it's really hard to have enough safety in a street car class.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Well, and like if you go back on the earlier rules too, like an 850 cage used to be a 750 cage. Like if you went way back in HRA, like then they moved everything up again, right? Now 25.3, 25.1, right? Like that whole deal.
Yeah.
So,
and if they tighten up too much, the car count's just going to be gone.
Yeah.
It's just going to be done.
The cars have evolved faster than than that aspect of it. The ability to make horsepower go fast is a lot easier than it was 10 years ago.
Your new car is pretty much, I mean, you're not going to cage out, right?
It's started to 6.0.
Yeah. Okay, so
yeah, there's
I don't.
No, we're
Let's be realistic.
too many horsepower away from that. We're too many horsepower away from. Now maybe we took another. If we there's not 400 pounds in the car. No. Maybe there's 100. No, there's no way. That's not.
It's just not even.
It's not realistic for the current power that we know that engine will make. Now maybe a billet block. You could probably make 3,500 maybe out of a Coyote.
Yeah. Is a billet block heavier than that block?
I assume so. Being that it's solid.
Which is such a weird thought.
Yeah.
The billet block's the heavier option.
Right.
It's probably because the AccuFab one, they punched that hole all the way through the center to get weight out of it too.
Right.
Which is like it's like
I'm sure,
there's just a hole.
I'm sure it's heavy.
Like, looks like a camshaft hole.
Well, they had those iron blocks that they posted about every now and then too.
It's been a few years. They've been talking about that. I talked to them at PRI last year because that'd be cool, but then that's probably 80 pounds heavier than our block. So the current block shows me no ever to want to run iron block. Like, we're probably 2,700 horsepower. So the last few times we ran the car.
Dark keeps talking about that 2J one too. Same deal.
Yeah, and I went and saw that. Walked up to it. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And I'm like, oh, it's not. It's
wood.
It looks wood. I'm like, you guys didn't even bring a real one.
I know.
It does look like it though from
I think they
10 feet away. You're like
machined it a little bit to look like a little more. I don't know. I mean, you work at Real Street, so you know, like you touch more 2Js than Coyotes at this point.
Yeah, and the 2J market is just when they need cores, they need cylinder heads, and they need blocks. It's the only thing holding back that engine from making more people running it or racing it.
That's the tough part. We are hitting a ceiling where things are just gonna get more expensive in the 2J world because there's not more of there's no access to more. You either clean out Japan and take all of their motors, or you just have to do billet cylinder head, billet block, and then that's just
I saw it's like somebody overseas is going to start doing a cast head, a new repop cast head for the 2J is what I saw. Cool. I mean, I don't follow that stuff close enough, but I saw somebody post and it was like a viable thing. I was like, huh.
It's just the having the forgery to make the casting is the problem, I think. Like actually having the facility.
Yeah, and
they're all owned by manufacturers.
I also worry though that not all castings are the same.
Oh, no.
They're not.
I mean, if some aftermarket company makes a cast head, the chance that it's as good as the OEM Toyota one is probably pretty slim.
And the Toyota one, Jay was looking at one the other day. They look different than the early ones, because processes, years change, materials, who knows, a lot of things I'm sure changed in that aspect.
People get real weird about the LS blocks. They're like, if it has from this factory in Mexico was the good one. Right. It's like
the early Ford stuff was the same way.
You have to find it at the right spot.
Which geographical location did this one come from?
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think the Coyote will be around for a long time now too, because it's the next really great engine, or the current really great engine that's still in production. You can go to Ford and buy all this stuff at ease, and we have another good long time before those parts start drying up.
And you guys really paved the way. I mean, you were part of paving the way on the simplicity of it, like stock cams and stock this and that. And when you tell somebody the more stock parts they can run, I feel like it just makes it more and more attainable.
Yeah, no,
it just
absolutely.
Gets progressively easier.
And like you said, we did that a lot, and it was really trying to perfect the combo in ourselves in our racing. Like part of it was evolution, and part of it was money, and the other thing was why buy a $2,000 set of camshafts and let's just see how fast we can make these. And that's really kind of what we did up until the point of this car. And I think why the program works so well is because we've kind of, knew the stopping point of each part, and then you upgrade one. And you're learning piece by piece rather than just putting in this $40,000 exotic engine with all these parts in it and going out there and tearing it up, not knowing necessarily the limits or the things like
and
that.
And defining the combo, right? I mean, like certain combos, like 6R80 stuff, like stock cams are great, right? Because you're just, it's all there where you need it because you don't have super great converter technology, right? You don't have all these dumps and things like that you can do on other trans, but it's pretty proven combo at this point.
Yeah, that's crazy too. Like the fact that you guys stuck with the 6R80 so long is crazy. I mean, I know that you built them, but still.
I was a bigger street car guy back then. Well, the problem, honestly, what it was I bought that car. It was almost brand new, so it was like 6 months old. I bought it from the guy that bought it brand new. It was the first, new car. I still called it new. That I bought, and I bought it in 2014. And then I bought a turbo kit for it pretty much the same day I bought the car. It was like the plan. I sold my dirt bike, bought the turbo kit, because I wasn't going to race motocross anymore. And it was a brand new car. So putting a Turbo 400 in it, to me at that point, was not even a question. I'm like, this is a brand new car. I'm not going to put a 1960s transmission.
I'm not going to go dent my tongue.
You know what I mean? Like, this car, it's stock. It's awesome. So then that led it most of the way, and then it started doing cool stuff, and it's like, oh wait, we can just keep going.
Well, then people said you couldn't do it, so then it's like,
yeah.
That'll really get a drag race.
We've been
That'll
fast. We already know that's the limit.
That'll get me going easy.
Yeah.
Or like post a false claim. I really don't like people succeeding off of false information that they spread themselves. Like that's just. It's just sour.
Trans converter stuff,
or any like records or that kind of stuff. It's like like you put this information out here that you're the best, you've been the fastest, and it's false information, and then everyone kind of clings to it because if it's online, it's true.
Yeah.
And then it's like, no, I don't know if that's true.
That happens really bad with new cars when people are like the first to do something.
The Mustang's really funny.
It's already happening right now again.
You can lead.
650 came here.
Yeah. You can lead a crowd of Mustang owners so easily, I feel like. Like, look what I'm doing, look, and they'll just follow.
Well, and sad part is it's companies because they're selling parts off of it, usually that's the case.
Yeah, the new one, I already seen some crazy stuff. It's like 60 horsepower gains on NA cars. I'm like, that's unreal.
Yeah.
That's almost unbelievable.
Eric, I laughed out loud when I saw Eric post the highest horsepower. He just dynoed a stock one, was the first one to be on like a hub dyno, and he was.
Oh, that's great.
He was just joking. Highest horsepower hub dyno Mustang, Mustang or something,
Yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, that was good.
That engine's pretty interesting. It'll be cool to see like if some of the parts kind of transfer over cylinder head wise, because OEM does lead the way on that stuff where you guys can steal like you run the Voodoo heads now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that stuff, they pioneered new tech that you can steal in a way.
Yeah. I mean, the more horsepower an engine will make NA, and the more horsepower it's going to make boosted. So as the cylinder heads and things get better for making power, then it will. As long as that engine doesn't get too technological as far as just efficiency, where it gets, chains get smaller, rockers get smaller, there's more DI or straight DI to make just efficiency laws. Then it'll start going the other way. But right now, I mean, we have a great selection of factory parts.
Yeah, even like the F-150 stuff seems really good and strong and like.
Yeah, those trucks are cool.
Seems awesome, though.
Yeah, we're going to get involved with a couple of them coming up. I'm pretty excited about because the aluminum body trucks, they're not that heavy compared to the Mustangs. And they're all-wheel drive, so it's like, man, they could be freaking quick.
And they look good.
And they have like a good rear end.
And who doesn't like a truck? All car guys like trucks. Like, we're all truck guys. Like,
I love that people think that that's like, I'll have my race car and then I'll get my F-150 two-door short bed. And it's like, well, you're going to go down the same route as soon as you touch that.
That's our buddy Quentin.
Yeah, right.
He just did that. He was building what was he building?
He was building an S550.
Yeah, S550.
And then he put a blower and stuff on his truck, ended up running 8s with it. And then he actually hurt the engine at TX2.
Yeah, TX2.
Oh, yeah, the red one there.
Red truck, yeah.
So now the engine that we were building them for the S550 was like, well, we're going to just put that in the truck now and get a couple 76s for it and Motec. And so it's
going to be an awesome build.
We need like a support group for us because that's how every car guy ends up going down that same rabbit hole of...
The gamblers. And
it's the I bought a daily, I need a new daily meme that's been around forever.
And it gets worse with these cars that you can like, the temptation is there on a Coyote pickup truck to make 1,500 horsepower street car.
Yeah, or even 1,000 on a stock engine. Like you just put a power adder on it, and like that's it.
I think the biggest jump though, which makes those so good, is the ECUs are good enough. Because like, you know, old LSs are cool, but the ECUs are so bad that you have to change everything, and then you don't have a car that the power windows work anymore because you just had to take all that stuff out or try to.
Yeah.
But the Coyotes seem like they're all smart enough.
Yeah, it's the good and the bad. To me now, like if you're wanting to keep a car actually complete and nice and stock trans, then yeah, but like there's so many people that are racing stock ECU cars on a Coyote because they are good enough, but they're so limited by the stock ECU for actual race tuning.
Yeah.
But the car will run and go that fast, so it's like, you know, I don't need to spend this much money on an aftermarket ECU. And then they just kind of end up struggling through the lack of tunability, you know, with a stock ECU. Because, you know, at the power, at the high, you know, 1,500 horsepower or so, like these ECUs, it's just fuel and timing. Like they don't really know what's going on. You know, a lot of times they don't even know there's boost in there. They're still running
maxed out.
They're still running the math, you know, like.
I mean, they've been fast on them though. You guys have been, but when you had the 6R80 stuff, you kind of were forced to.
We were forced to, right? And but I think Brian went 690 the S550. Like I think a stock ECU has been that quick. But you know, running a number one time and then having like a really tunable, consistent car. Like I'm obviously a big supporter of an aftermarket ECU after using one for a few years now. Like, well, the data
consistency, going track to track, like that whole.
The biggest thing our friends struggle with, or they struggle with trying to help people with, you know, even transmission stuff or whatever, is you have no data. Your data login, you got an O2 trim and like a spark. You're seeing the stuff that stock ECU sees, but like, there's not an oil pressure sensor on a Coyote on the older ones.
Good.
There's not there's no fuel pressure. There's no anything.
Well, even on like the Chevy stuff, like people are like, they have the oil pressure just like this, where there's no like, it's just 0 or like 100, and you're
right. Well, it's actually a switch. It's not even a sensor. It's just a fake gauge. I've seen those.
Our stock dashes used to say like good. It was like oil pressure. Good.
Yeah, it was just
all right,
it was
cool.
just a
like, thumbs up.
Just like
Now, you know, if I was going to do a stock computer again, I would just have a separate data logging system with sensors in place. You know, where you can see transfer pressure, converter pressure.
Well, for example. You know, Lund said he would come on here when he went 6s on his 6R80, and he still hasn't been on yet. So I'm holding my breath. I'm waiting.
World Cup though. I mean, he should
still with the 6R80.
Yeah,
but
listen it up.
Yeah, I mean they're doing good. The car's awesome. Like it's a
great car.
It's gonna be really fast when they change the trans. And you know, I understand why they are running the stock computer thing, but they also have the data logger on their car, and they have all of the sensors that I have on my car. Essentially, that's
basically your car with stock stuff and OEM trans. I mean, the cars are very similar as far as like what's cut out.
Yeah, well, the new one's getting closer.
It is
with the new turbo
more or
cam
less
stuff they're putting on. But rear end wise, it was exactly
still
like it's still
3
link. Yeah, it's more like the old car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is almost done. I was working on it this morning for Zach after he heard it last year at Modnats.
Yeah,
it's rebuilding. It's got a 25.3 now.
It's almost been a full year for him.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't hurt real bad. The crank broke and caused a fire in the engine bay. The fire just singed some wires. Wasn't the worst thing, but the car ended up running off into sand traps, kind of wrecking the front end. And then so it needed a paint job. We ended up doing the chassis, doing a full wiring harness in the car. So like all the stock wiring is gonna be gone. It's gonna have a PDM.
All the things it needed.
Yeah, he took the opportunity to make.
It's gonna be a dry sump now, so it's gonna be super legit.
All the things that needed to be done when you had it.
Well, I mean, when he knew when he bought the car, he's like, "What would you do? What would you do to this car?" And I was like, "Well, next on the car was going to be dry sump, a new wiring harness, and 25.3. I mean, it's just the next progression of the car."
Well, that's why you guys made the decision to get rid of that car, was because you knew that next step was such a big step that it was kind of like, you know, he knew that you were trying to take the next step, so it's not like no secret.
It would take away what we originally built the car for.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that to that car too. It's just, and it's still, and he did a good job. Like the roll cage and stuff, it's still complete. Like, you know, to me, I mean, I'm a little biased with my car, but that was one of the nicest examples of like a complete still street car. You know, our term of like still had all the factory interior, 2 seats, power windows. You know that could run a 6.
Now Jim's in the same boat.
Oh yeah.
waiting for the next
It's
stuff.
everything just a year later.
Yeah.
Except for this chassis. This chassis is probably not going to happen.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Jim's always just had the proven parts,
Yeah.
right after.
I let Brett do all the hard work. I help with it, but he spends all the money, and then I just reap the benefits of like, okay, I'm going to do that here,
Well,
this one here, that one there.
Joel Steele's new car's almost done, so maybe he'll be bored of that in a year, and it'll.
He already said that.
Our joke,
Every time he's posted a picture of it, it's like, hey, you think Joel will sell that car in a year?
our joke is every year before TX2K, it's like, what do we change on your car? Because it's never ready for. We always say we're not going to touch the car. It's fine. We're going to go to TX2K so we can just, really have a solid lined out car. 3 minutes later, it's like, hey, we just pulled this out. Let's just remake the whole turbo kit.
TX2K was like a staple race for us because it's what started us like away racing. Me and Jim, everyone said we were crazy. We're gonna go to Texas race TX2K, and it was like
borrowed a double car trailer,
right?
Double car open,
and we went out there, and I ended up getting runner up. I red lit in the finals, and on the way home, I was like, we need a faster car.
Yeah.
So
that was a
I
single
was like,
turbo
in a
kit
6R80.
Yeah.
I was like, I need twins. I was like, we need a car needs to run 750s. I think we were going. I went 790 at home, and we went 80 out there.
Yeah.
And I was like, we need a 750
Which
car.
at that time was probably extremely fast and competitive.
That was the elite class. Like
Yeah.
I was runner up.
They didn't even split it. It was
just one
30.
class.
Yeah, it wasn't even like a full 32 car field either.
No, I think there was a little more because we were excited or it was close, but it wasn't anything like it is now car count wise.
All I know is I remember racing Rebecca first round. So we both drew all from VMP.
Yeah.
We both
Coyote
drove
car.
all the way out to
drove
Texas
to
to race
Florida.
first round. I was like, oh, that's cool.
So then we worked that year, got the car ready, and was like, all right, got it running good. And then seems like every winter, it's like, all right, I want to change something.
Well, then we put the Motec on it right before then.
The next year, or no, I did a Power Glide.
We did
the next
Power
year.
Glide, then
it was the Motec, and then it was the new car, and I missed.
Yeah.
I didn't get it done in time.
Well, I was thinking about that today, how we are in this stupid class that allows us to just go as crazy as possible. Whereas if you look at like LDR, Ultra Street, like they're like, we're trying to keep the cars at this speed. Yeah. We're like, whatever. Like if you can go 580s in a street car, it's fine.
It's really the only thing that's wrong with the class. It's like, everyone wants to argue a street car. It's like, no, like this is a racing class that you trailer your car to and that you race.
It's a class that you call street car.
The rules are loose enough that, it doesn't just have a good set of rules that, keeps cars limited. But it's hard. But that's also why the class is fun because of the creativity, the multiple different cars. That's why it gets more attention than LDR does, as far as maybe viewers or things like that.
Well, that's why you just don't see 15 Fox bodies, right? Like you got Matt with the Miata, you got, RC with an S2000, right? You got S197s, Camaros, you got everything.
IRS, solid rear axle cars, you got all-wheel drive cars. Like it's a very diverse class to watch.
Yeah.
Which is the coolest part of it, but then it just gets run away with, which has happened. I feel like it's exponentially ran away in the last year.
That's what we do as car guys. Like that's everything we do, right? You buy a car, then you start modding it, it just goes completely out of hand. And you're like, oh, how? Like we knew this was gonna happen.
Yeah, it's definitely because like I stayed where I was at. Like I haven't gotten much faster in the last 2 years, and I don't like the try to keep up with the other guy because it doesn't excite me that much. I'm not like I'm just gonna try to outspend that guy or because you can always say I'm just gonna outwork him, but you really have to outspend them as well.
Well, yeah, it also takes money for sure.
Yeah,
to buy the stuff,
the
especially with some of the stuff coming out or is out.
And I mean, even like your car, it may not be the most expensive build, but the amount of turbos that you've tested, the amount of engine development you've gone through, that's where the cost comes in.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. And and that's why I don't just go enter every street car event with the class, even though it fits a lot of the rules. Like I don't think I've even entered but one college street car, but TX2K. Yeah. And, I'll go. It depends because like who shows up.
Yeah.
Who's there? We went to a few different SCTs and it was like, I'm gonna run small tire. Like I feel like my car fits in small tire better. Like
not just trying to go club baby seals, right?
I mean,
you gotta have some some dignity.
Well, you are posting YouTube videos now, so you have to
big YouTube guy.
So you're gonna have to go out there and say, I beat everyone in my class. Look at this.
He sent me the video, right? And I watched it. He's like, check it out. I was like, oh, it's awesome, right? And then like, I don't know, I think like 20 minutes later I called him and was like, oh, you posted this on your channel.
Yeah. the thumbnail was very like, I was like, wait, is this a TRC video or is this a Real Street video? I was like, freaking.
Well, Pablo edited it.
Sneaky Pablo
he filmed it and edited it, so it's kind of all the same thing.
Yeah.
Secrets revealed. That's what I'm talking about. It's all about the thumbnail.
I was messaging him on Instagram because I always try to harass him as much as possible because
That's good.
he takes it well. So he was. I want to get him on here to talk about his experience on Sick Week as well because he had quite a journey.
He broke stuff that I didn't know you could break.
Yeah, Sick Week's a good one, but then that all conversation kind of comes back to once you achieve your goals with the car, then what? Like, you know, you've already gone, like you achieved your goals with your car and you guys said that you've sat down and talked, like had a serious conversation, like what do we do now? Yeah. And it's kind of true. Like, what do you do?
We're just going to keep running.
No, we're gonna run a 6-way his car this year.
Brett's all about that.
With the 68s, with the small turbo.
Yeah, but you're not like super far from that.
No, it's been
our goals are never really
27.
No, it's been a
17.
Been a 17.
17.
Yeah.
Well, the thing with meeting goals, if you put them too far out, you're never gonna get them. Like I could be like, I'm gonna run 5s, but it's not gonna probably happen. Like
but you'll fail a lot closer to your goal. If you set them really high, you fail closer.
Well, I think it's like the progressions of like you got to set your goals enough where you can learn enough to achieve them, and then you take what you've learned.
And realistic goals.
Like we've done, right? We take what we've learned, then we've applied it to the next goal, and then you're like. And then it always happens, right? You're like, the car goes down, and you're like, how did it go this fast? And you're like, wow, we blew our original goal out of the water.
Yeah, I think to run a 6-way his car is going to be pretty cool.
He will have to floor it the whole time, though. That's going to be a tough one.
I actually moved my seat back, too.
When I took his car to Kansas to the NHRA thing, I was like, Jim, joke's on you. I'm about to go run a 6 in your car. And I was like, I'm going to get the first 6.
That NHRA track prep is known to be so good.
Right. Well, I think I went to Orlando to test or something. I was going to do it that day.
Yeah,
I was not good at running 850s, by the way. No. I never ran an 850. I went 842, 849. 830.
A lot of 840s though.
That's a tough class because they called me up about that too, and he's like, "You can only run 850s," and I'm like, "It's not that slow for me, but it really doesn't sound fun at all."
I thought I had it locked. I went in Topeka. I went 849 all in, floored the whole time, and I'm like, man, all I got to do is just let off anywhere at the end. It's gonna be an 850, and I was ahead of the guy. It's like, all right, cool. I let off, put the parachute out. Got to the end. Good race. Yeah, man, you beat me. Get the slip. 842. Nothing changed. Tune-up was within a tenth of the boost.
Before the light came on.
The weather was like exactly the same. I'm like, my car is more consistent than this. I'm like, man, why is your car not like
the weather station out?
Like, it was like within 40 feet. Like it was I spent a good hour like scouring over the data, mad. Like, how did it pick up so much in the middle?
Hang out with the bracket racers a little bit in their weather stations.
Yeah, it was.
Well, you're also so you couldn't turn it down enough either. You're like,
well, no,
I can't go below 20 pounds.
20 pounds was my limit. I'm like, Jim was like, I'm at 19, like 20 pounds of boost. I'm like, I can't take more out of it. Like morally, I just.
So he just starts pulling timing everywhere.
Yeah, I'm like, he's going down to like 10. I'm like, I just can't run less than 20 pounds.
You hear like somebody down track. Did it get into the traction control? It sounded like it just dropped timing or something.
Yeah, I'm like, no. I was like, I can't do it.
The converter sounded terrible.
It was. The DA out there was not too good, and his converter was already kind of too tight here. But it's okay. It's spooled.
It's spooled-ish.
Do you even needed to spool for that? Can you just
barely.
Yeah, can you just foot brake it?
Well, there was people spinning too that came out with this because the track prep, it was like 102 degrees out there and sun out.
NHRA doesn't really care that much about it.
They're slick tire cars. So, like there's rubber on the track because they drag it and stuff. There's just no glue. Yeah. Like that's really the difference. There's just no glue. And but I think I had like a 1.4 60 foot. And your car would just
149.
It just did it every time.
Yeah, I can imagine it.
I think that probably run it out here in the driveway. Like
you're racing people that are like turned up to go their 850. And
I think there was a couple cars that were like actually 850 cars, but for most people, they were dialing it down. But it was fun. We got to meet like a ton of cool people. They pitted us in a really neat spot, like right next to John Force, like on the midway. Some of the people like knew my car because my car was there in the trailer, so we had it at the booth. So that felt good. Yeah. It was cool.
It was cool to see the pictures. Never done that before.
That is a cool
race.
Never
loaned my car out before.
But,
I felt like you, though. I felt like a team owner,
Yeah, I was like big team owner.
That's the best way to do it. He didn't even fly in for it. He just
just watched it on the live stream.
Just watched it on the live stream.
Yeah, and then yelled at me when I lost. It was just...
You see, the guy I put in my driver's seat, he won for me. He won front wheel drive in my Mustang.
You might need a new driver. Heads up only. I beat the guy to the stripe.
You did beat him to the stripe.
At least win something.
Yeah, it wasn't the worst way to lose. I'm like, all right, I went too fast. You know, it was all right.
Well,
that's always nice.
Then I did feel kind of bad because when you lost, I texted you. I was like, that was like good try or something like that. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, he hasn't seen it yet. I thought I waited long
Croner
enough.
or someone came over and was like, is that it? And I'm like, yeah, that's it. First round, you go home. I was like...
But wait, so you beat the guy to the finish line, and you knew where he was, but you still didn't slow down, even though you knew you were in front of him.
Oh, no, I was off. The chute was out before I was even over the stripe.
I know, but you were still in front of the guy, so if you're in front of the guy, you gotta slow wait. I'll teach you how to...
They just treat him, you know? He was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, I don't... Yeah, I should have... Yeah, I don't know.
I need to teach you how to sandbag a little here.
I'm not used to that B-class racing, you know?
Yeah, that was me at FL2K.
That's like everyone, all our friends and stuff, they're used to racing smaller class too. They're like, yeah, you did a bad job. I'm like, yeah, it's my first time. I know.
At FL2K, I had to get back on the gas on someone with the parachute out.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
That was
when you threw the chute, like, and then was on the gas,
like
you were
800
cool,
feet.
I was about to say bad.
No, that was.
This dude threw the chute, let off, and got back in the
After
gas.
my experience in Kansas, I realized how much skill that actually took, and I have a new respect for the shootout back in the gas.
The butt dyno was on point on that day because you really have to know what kind of pass you're on, and yours is probably completely tainted at this point.
Oh yeah, well that's the other problem. The A50 stuff, I just felt broken.
Yeah,
I'm just like looking at the log, pulling the data log.
Pull
up,
over.
And I'm like,
the joke was that he was going to be tuning his car for the
next
Colorado
event.
race.
yeah.
While he's
What do you
dealing
do
with
with all
that.
that time?
You do lose a lot of perspective on it though. The A50 unfortunately feels really, really bad.
And it's air shifted your car, right?
Yeah.
So you're really doing nothing.
No,
It doesn't even I try to keep my car where I shift it just because it gives me something to do in there. Like as I get more and more used to that, I like to feel like I was part of this.
Yeah, I made that shift.
Like I got treed, but I'm part of
I
this.
do the same thing, but I do it in the computer.
I was probably...
Like, ooh, 8,400 RPM.
No,
nice.
knowing me, I was out on the guy and I was thinking about next round already.
Yeah, probably.
I was like, all right, it's cool. We got this one. And then we'll cool the car down. Blah, blah, blah. Like I was probably already processing what we were going to do after that round.
Brett's idea of cooling the car down was opening the hood.
Yeah.
It was hot after that pass.
Yeah.
You want it a little hot to slow it down. That's part of the index racing. You let it get a little warm for your next round, naturally pulls a little bit of... I guess that's just me because I don't open my laptop.
Right.
I use temperature.
Yeah.
That's if it data log.
Yeah.
Engine's still there. We're good.
Still has oil pressure. I do have that. I try to keep less things because if I have too many things, I start to spiral. I start to get...
I'm the opposite. If I can't see it, then I'm like... If I'm like waiting to go into a burnout box, I'm looking at my car, I'm looking at my switch, understanding like... I turned it up to 4. Like, that's the highest setting I got. Well, calibrated. So then I'm like, do I go back to 3? Do I go to 4? And then I'm like on the dash and I'm like, wonder what converter pressure is, line pressure. I'm like, I wish I could see that.
Too many things.
Well,
You don't need
to. Failed me once before.
Yeah, but you don't need to see it because what are you going to do? You're strapped in.
Yeah.
For the next round.
It just makes me feel better.
This is
That's
like...
it.
You're not going to get out and lay under the car and like...
What if I get my 2 minutes?
Make sure everything's
Give me my 2
good.
minutes.
Brett, is this okay? It's fine.
It's fine.
It's good.
I usually end up with the guy in front of me does something where I do have plenty of time after I'm strapped in.
Yeah, you're
Oh yeah,
pretty good at that.
I'm always pretty strapped, ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I've just always had people
I hate being
in front
rushed.
of me.
Like it sucks
Yeah.
being like rushed in and you're not in your zone.
Let's just bring up the obvious. TX2K this year
was bad.
brutal. The rain, we got up twice.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I was
the
like I did a
rain.
burnout and everything.
Yeah.
I was like in the beans,
Got
and I was like the
stopped at the
last
light.
for the night. Yeah.
Yeah, you were
I was
getting
sitting
like
right
drizzled
behind
on.
Yeah, I'm like it's fine. I'm like it's not fine. I'm like,
It's not
I'm like I'll go.
The traction control.
Just let me go. We'll have a rain tune.
Nothing they could do, right?
Yeah,
But
that
man,
was-
it was just the timing was brutal. Timing was
That was rough. I mean, even like I think there was a 25-degree temperature change from when I was strapped in to when I actually made my pass.
Yeah.
And there is no way to keep heating your motor at that point. You're just kind of screwed. You're like, I'm like trying to warm nitrous bottles. I'm trying to deal with my wife, who at the time was, I guess, 1 day pregnant. One TX2K rain delay.
It was a good night. It was a good night.
one rain delay.
I always mess with her about that. She's like, it wasn't TX2K. I'm like, it was close. And about that.
It's gotta be close.
It had to have been real close. And now this year we're going out to Enos, which is
I'm excited for that.
a good bit farther.
We just said I was just
A few
like,
hours.
I'm
After
excited
driving
for a
to
new
Colorado, it felt gonna feel close. That was a long drive.
Ooh, that drive
5,000
sucks.
miles round trip.
And once you get into that elevation in your truck, you're like, I'm so sorry. And you like have to floor it and you're like,
I was towing the 2-car trailer with my single axle.
you feel the power just disappear. It's just gone. Like it feels so weird. Like you feel like it's broken.
Yeah, it was weak. It needed some gear ratio.
Needed a little more delete or something along those lines.
It needed a gear ratio. I was like, that's why dualies have 430 rear gears. It's like, this mountain's feeling pretty steep.
Makes sense. Yeah, when we did it in the RV to Colorado and Vegas, it was scary. I was like, I don't know if we're making it up this mountain. And you're trying to like modulate the brakes a little because you see everybody in the
run-ups.
the run-ups, yeah.
You guys also had the little tag axle too, didn't you?
That was all bad. Wouldn't recommend any of it. Would not recommend any of it. So with the Coyote stuff, is it kind of currently the best platform because nobody can really rule you out? It's hard to rule a Coyote out of a class.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Small
it's
cubic
300 cubic inches,
yeah.
a factory, sleeve, but a stock casting, and turbos, 76 to 80 millimeters.
You know, T4 technically,
Yeah.
even though they're V-band, they're technically a T4 size.
Yeah, it's a
My
T4.
car's T3 too. So like, even if you went down that path,
Yeah.
you still can't.
Well, they just keep adding, like, a lot of the World Cup rules this year, they're stacking weight on the Coyote cars. Like, there's some of the Mustang stuff, like, that are Jim's combo or my buddy's combo that are, like, 3,800 pounds. I think one of the classes has it at, like, 4,000 pounds. It's a big race number. Big
That is
race weight.
Yeah,
What
they
is-
can't limit combo.
That's a scary weight. That is a lot to any vehicle. I mean, I would hate to have to roll through the scales at 4,000 pounds. Like
Yeah.
that's
It's really heavy.
it's like a tow rig.
But I
Jeez.
guess, even in that aspect, the billet engine's, capable of making more horsepower. And
Yeah.
still kind of the same deal with a small engine.
Yeah, that's a weird one because I wonder about that because I try to think about how do you go the best route to not get ruled out, and even some classes for me they were like no nitrous, and I'm like, well, that kind of gets me a little bit, which is silly to do to a 2J car in a street car class.
I don't even think that's really a good rule for a lot of the classes because, like, I don't know with the no nitrous or the dual power adders and like the street car class stuff because.
Well, it's like the
There's so
supercharged
many-
guys have to have that, right? Like if you want to
Right,
race
or
in a street car class,
a
like, you
lot
gotta
of the
have
import
it,
cars need it.
But I don't know that it's that much of a difference that you would rule it out, right? Like my perspective.
Because if you had a Coyote with like a big Whipple on it or something, how much power could you realistically make? Like there's a very
they
clear
make, like,
ceiling.
30.
Nothing like a turbo's going to make still,
Yeah.
or you're
Right.
capable of making.
So
but-
let them have nitrous.
Right, they're going to make 1,1500 on the blower and like be hating life probably. Like it's a big blower.
Yeah.
And then have to spray it. Like,
That's a lot of heat when you're trying to make that on a blower.
yeah, you're doing a lot of stuff and the guy's on a stock computer.
Yeah. And you're going to hurt the crank probably.
Yeah, like their 3.8 liter whip, like it's bigger than the engine. The blower's
Yeah.
sitting out there.
You have to use like the engine hoist to get the blower off.
Yeah.
Those are crazy. Some of those blowers, I can't believe how big they are. But I've seen some guys do pretty well. I don't know. I haven't seen the Procharger stuff do that well on the Coyotes, but I recently saw the Ultra Street car, that Coyote with the Procharger and the Whipple,
Yeah.
which is pretty crazy. That is a weird way to.
They must be doing some rule stuff with that one, right?
Yeah.
Like I haven't
Had
looked
to
much
have.
into it. I saw pictures of it, but it's like, all right, they're aiming for something.
they're getting
with that.
around
That
rules.
that was thought about for something.
Yeah, that was a trick way to do something
Yeah.
cool. But I mean, it looks cool, and I'm sure the bracketry is something crazy to have.
Is it a crank driven Pro Charger? I don't even remember.
I don't
Was
think
it
so. I think
belt-driven?
it's belt driven.
So
So
many belts.
That's a
Yeah,
lot of
there's no way. I can't do it. I can't do it.
have like those things are expensive too. Like if you've never broken a belt, they're like $80 a piece.
Yeah, $100. Yeah, the guys always have a few of them because you hit the rev limiter once or something and then it's snapping.
Yeah, that's what'll happen to me if I hit the rev limiter. I'll sling the belt.
Yeah, the
every now and
tensioner
then.
resets.
Mhm. It's really sad.
That's so-
You gotta get out in your race gear in the burnout box and
Slide your belt back
put your belt back on while you're doing.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
I got the 15 right here. You're working your tensioner back. But the VMP stuff, they're local and they do a really good job on like a street car.
Oh yeah, blower those or the VMP or the Whipple, like if for a street Coyote deal. Other than that, it's the loudest thing on earth. It needs like 4 mufflers.
That is true.
I think it's awesome.
Well, PD sounds great.
Yeah, I have a '64 Falcon with a Coyote, and it's got a Whipple on it, and we did mufflers in the center of the car because that's where they sit on older cars rather than all the way in the back, and did like a chambered Flowmaster like you'd put on an older Mustang, and it doesn't sound horrible.
No.
Yeah, that's where I forget that it's tough to do that because in LS with a blower, you're like, oh, it sounds great.
Yeah.
All you hear is the blower.
That's Coyote's biggest downfall, I think, is the bad noises.
It's too high pitch. That's the problem. The turbos really bring it down.
Until you get to the high horsepower ones, your car, my car, like I think those sound good, but they don't sound like a normal like street Coyote, like passing you on the street.
What you guys do that I've always had a somewhat of a gripe with on sound is exhaust on both sides is always so tough.
Yeah.
Because you never hear the whole engine.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like any car that does that, like it's tough because you're just hearing like one side of an engine and one turbo. It always sounds a little funky.
Yeah, because you hear the cylinders.
It's also nice for diagnostic.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this one.
So are zoomies.
It's an odd noise.
But yeah, it's always like, it's hard because you stand on the one side and you just hear like kind of like almost like a ticking sound that's coming from the one side.
It's bad.
Chatter.
Jay and I have talked about making like plugs for my downpipe so you can actually hear the engine. Like I only can really hear the engine when I'm in the car with my helmet on because it muffles out the exhaust noises and you can actually hear the engine.
Yeah, but also I feel like with your car you have so much diagnostic tools that how often is it? I know by sound you caught the one issue.
It'll catch a lot by sound.
Really? I figured most of it was
Only
caught in
Brett's
the
ears
ECU.
are-
I was in the burnout box and he's
stuff
like,
up.
my car didn't start. I was like, I heard it. The secondary timing chain broke when you cranked it. I was
Nice.
like,
I did. It was idling. I was like, it started weird, you know.
right.
And then I was hearing a post of you. He's across
true
into the
story.
burnout because I'm getting ready to pull up, and it went ding, and then it went. That was it. I was like, better not crank this again. That sounded metal.
And he could tell.
He starts walking over.
I was like,
I said, I think it broke.
Car.
He goes, secondary. I was like, he's like, I heard it. I was like,
I will say though, sometimes at a far distance, it is better to hear some of those sounds when you're not too close to the car.
Yeah.
You'll actually hear some weird stuff almost quicker. Like even like bottom end, you can hear way different than like top end noise. We
Yeah.
were at what was it, Streetcar Takeover when you heard your tensioner or your
that's happened
cam-
after that run. Yeah, the cam cap broke.
yeah, and which was crazy to me because after I saw that, I was like, oh, he probably could have fixed that.
yeah.
And beat up on the whole class still.
Oh right, yeah, probably could have. Nah.
Yeah, you probably could. I mean, that was after all of sick week.
Well, then if we would have like put a new cap on, it wouldn't have been right. We would have ran it, and then we wouldn't have been able to like really kind of diagnose what happened to it because maybe more would have happened to that to be able to find out what the problem was.
See, you guys are so much more professional than me. I've been like yelling at the tuner.
Well, definitely the tune.
Definitely the tune.
Alpha, what the heck, dude? Have you changed the spark? No. You got to yell at the tuner a little bit. That's why I don't want to ever tune my own stuff because
Can't yell at
Yeah,
yourself.
who do
who
you
are you
blame?
going to talk to? Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
it just makes for a long ride home when you lose a race because you did something wrong like that.
go back to
yourself.
yelling at my wife.
Right?
Did that enough already.
I don't
No,
want
Brett
to go
just
racing
calls
with
me
you
up.
no
We
more.
just chat about the whole situation. That's it. It's like, I can't believe I did that.
Sometimes just talking through the problem actually is what will get you to the answer.
Yeah.
You don't even have to like, I'll just talk through the problem with Bronte sometimes.
Yep.
And I'm just like, these are the symptoms. She's not going to help me at all.
I just need you to listen. That's
Well,
it.
yeah,
I
it's
gotta
definitely
hear it
a real-
out loud.
It's definitely a real thing. You come
Yeah.
up with you come up with stuff while you're saying it.
Finding the problem is part of the solution, I guess they say. Did you see freaking Justin Jordan did he make 1,700 horsepower on that deal?
He tried like 3 or 4 times or something
God
like that.
dang.
Blue car.
Yeah.
Is that thing even...
It's cool.
I did not realize it was going to make that kind of power.
He started all over
I thought it was a
again.
joke. I was like 1,700 on like a real street car.
Yeah.
Like as real as street car gets. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like he's come full circle. He's back to doing it again because he's like, oh, I just want a daily driver, you know, and like that's how we started, right? Like his old blue car when he first had it, right? That's how it started as well, and then
Yeah, I
Just
mean, he went
progressed.
faster. He went faster first than anyone.
Yeah.
the Coyote stuff. Anyway.
That's
first one to go aftermarket
Yeah.
ECU around us, you know,
right?
like-
Did the full cage. Like,
Yeah.
I remember thinking he was crazy at the time because the cars. At that point, I was still like, it's a brand new car. You know, where
Yeah.
now I've done it so much, I'm like, yeah, get a new car.
cut the cage.
Cut it up.
I met him when he had the black car, and I was just in awe by that thing because we were like screwing around with a stick shift car when I was with Garrett, and this thing was going like 690s when nobody else was even near that at the time. And it was a street car still. Like, he had plenty of videos taken it. Like, he was definitely early on that deal.
Yeah, he did good pushing that.
It took everybody kind of a
He
while.
dominated for a lot of for a lot of years.
Yeah, he was the guy you never wanted to draw.
Yeah.
Or you hope he didn't show up, in the streetcar class because his car was, half a
Or
second
if you did draw
faster than everyone else.
You hoped it was in the middle of the day.
I only beat him once.
Yeah.
I always end up beating him
Because
in
it was
the
the hottest
finals.
part of the day,
And his car was
like-
a full half a second faster than my car, so you really couldn't beat him unless something happened. And I think we both were spun,
Yeah.
and then I outran him one race.
I got to beat Jim once, and then he changed his transmission.
That's enough of that.
Yeah.
I just got beat by Cooper.
Right.
We gotta change it.
Yeah,
I think it was more the 2J than you personally. We couldn't let him get beat by 2J.
that's fair. But I remember because I heard 12 gear shifts next to me. It was like dun, dun, dun. I was like, oh,
it wasn't getting any faster.
something's gonna happen.
It wasn't getting any faster.
Yeah, that was a fun one. That was the crowning achievement of my racing.
That was fun because I thought we were gonna have more overdrive racing because that's what it looked like it was turning into, and then it just disappeared.
You're the reason they didn't have more overdrive.
Yeah, all right,
racing.
never mind. They were like, we can put a 630 back in your car, right? Because that's the one that comes back on it.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, let's do that.
It was like only you and Pedro that were going to be fast with an overdrive trans, and you just went so fast that everybody was like, well, I guess.
It was the same. Came back to the point what do you want to do with the car? It's like, let's try something different. It's like, and then Motec, they just came out with the 680 software.
Yeah,
so
that
we
was
were able
probably
to
the bigger
help them.
push on that.
Yeah.
We
was fun,
wanted
though.
to play with it.
To play around with that, yeah. Because that does make it. I mean, that's kind of what I've always thought of you guys is you enjoy the challenge. Like most people would try to avoid the pain as much as possible. But it seems like even when you guys did the Street Outlaws thing, you were like, let's play with the challenge. It seems difficult, fun.
Right, yeah. It was like, well, they're doing it. We can figure it out, right?
Yeah.
It's just do it different. Definitely keeps it interesting. Yeah. And there's a lot of crossover in that stuff. You may learn something with the trans thing that you can apply to something else later in the car or whatnot.
Yeah, it's a cool. The best racers will probably push towards that pain and the difficulty and the difficult combo that nobody's doing yet, and that's why the Coyote stuff is where it's at.
Yeah,
and yeah, because the Street Outlaw stuff, I don't know how many people even that watch this cross over to watch that, but you guys did get to go out to the streets with Moretti's car.
Yep. Yeah, we took. I worked on Jared's car, his Supra, to change that over.
Oh yeah.
And then Mike's Mustang, and Mike was already kind of playing around because originally they wanted me to bring my green car, but that was right at the point that I had sold it to Zach. It was that month that he had bought that car and I had the new car, and I'm like, oh, it's maybe Zach was like, oh, maybe you can bring it, and I'm like. No, I'm like, it's too nice of a car. The street racing thing, it's just you're gonna crash at some point.
Somebody's gonna wreck into you. You're gonna wreck.
There's no you can't bring a really nice car. So it was like, Mike, you're up.
You have to be prepared to wad up your car a little bit.
Right? Yeah. I was like,
Mike, he was already
up.
messing around on the street.
Right. He had already, and that's why he drew that straw. He already had slicks,
Mm-hmm.
and and kind of set up for that. And then we changed some stuff on Jared's car, and got his car working pretty good. It was. We were getting it ready again for if they were going to do it this summer, because that was last summer. And
yeah, I'd be curious if because that's me and Jared talked about it a little bit. He's like, oh, if it takes off, they'll do it again. And I was like, I hope it does because I like seeing more car stuff. And
yeah, well, then Discovery Channel was purchased.
Yeah.
And I think some of that stuff's changing now. There's not going to be a season this year.
See, I had this conversation with Justin Swanstrom the other day, and I was like, do you see a world where the show and No Prep Kings don't both exist together? And he was like, it'll always be around. I was like, all right, moving on. I was like, that's a bold claim.
If the show goes away, that's going to leave a big opportunity for promoters because there's so many of those style of cars being built right now.
Yeah. But they get big contracts to do that. Mm-hmm. There's no promoter. If anybody was interested in the inside of this, no promoters are paying us to build these cars like Discovery pays.
Well, I mean, people building cars to try to get on the show. As far as people having no prep cars, the amount of no prep big tire cars that are in existence right now, that if the show goes away and no prep king goes away, they won't have a race.
There is actually a good rule set that they have that does seem to keep it pretty tight. But you guys you guys did pretty good at that, weren't you guys? In Mike's car going pretty fast?
Yeah, I mean, it was as fast as all of those other cars were, which, is slow at track stuff, but, with the 8th mile stuff, we did good. And again, we were muscling his car down the track because it was a stock computer and just like a boost controller. So you really couldn't, you can make a car pretty good at that.
Yeah. Wasn't it going like low fives? Like deep into the fives?
Yeah, I mean, they were all
touching in the fours?
Nah.
We know his car
because it was on top. It was on asphalt.
It was all fresh asphalt.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing too. And that was the biggest challenge with that is wherever you go test is completely different than the next spot. Every road, like 10 foot down the street is different because just the grain of the asphalt or how dirty it is or whatnot. So like every street you went to or tested on, it was like everything's like all new again.
And they didn't really tell you guys where you're gonna or where it was gonna be until like pretty late.
No, they didn't because everyone out there in Oklahoma, they knew all the spots, So it was like, they just knew like an area and they had an idea where it was going to be. But the street we ended up out there, they had one-nighter racing on it. So the starting line had some rubber down, but it was still pretty like rocky asphalt.
Yeah.
And then after the starting line, there was just nothing.
That's sketchy. Even like some of the testing I saw where it's like pitch black, I'm like, my headlights are not good enough for that.
Oh yeah, I can never take my car. Yeah, it was dark. Yeah, and we went out there and the group Jared got together. We all met up and we did like a testing night together. And we went out to this road and it was supposed to be blocked off and stuff. And then like a cop came and like, it's not blocked off. And it was super sketchy.
Yeah.
We made a couple passes there and then we went to this other like small town. He's like, oh no, I know the like owner of the town. And they like called the sheriff.
It's the most Oklahoma thing ever.
Pretty much something like that.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, it's fine. Just do it over there by the Walmart. And like, it wasn't a Walmart, something much smaller. But we were just on the street, like off the main road running. And like cop came and hung out and watched us. And we could only do like 300 feet because then there was like an intersection to a cross street that had traffic.
Yeah, you got to pull timing out for the railroad tracks or something weird. Prepare for the hump.
Yeah, it was basically that. But yeah, we went out there and then won the race with Jared's car. He raced Murder Nova and he won that race. And then Mike raced Ryan Martin first round, and we had a missed two-step adjustment and spun the tires on the starting line on that run. But then we ran Reaper and beat him. So
it seemed like some of those guys didn't take it seriously enough. And they brought
fun.
cars that were very street car.
Yeah.
And I was like, it seems like they were like, I guess I'll bring my like Camaro pro touring Camaro. I was like, wait.
Yeah,
Are they preparing for the same race?
It was a range of like 690 cars to mid to low 5-second cars because of what you said. But they were all just kind of like having fun. I feel like it was their break from like the big race stuff. Like they were all just having a good time. And then, Chuck had a pretty serious car. I think his Mustang was the fastest. Coyote, of course.
It's weird because people that don't know, we don't get any of that in Florida. As long as at least I don't get invited to hear about any of it, but I don't see any.
There's a few few little things that go on, but then the problem with that, the biggest thing for me, I realized I can never be a street racer. I'm not built for it. Is like you start at midnight and you get home at like 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these are long nights,
Yeah, that would be a pain in the ass. I like to finish my race at about midnight.
Right. Yeah, it was
load up.
Yeah, I'm already thinking about the drive home going, oh man, I'm not going to be home until 1.
Yeah, we didn't sleep much during that trip just because like you kind of hung out or worked on the cars during the day, and then by the time you could run, it's the middle of the night, and then wherever the spot is, a couple hours away.
See, I can get behind like no prep racing where you're like at a track, and I really dislike any racing that doesn't start with a tree.
Yes.
I don't want to hear anybody complain about a jump. If I hear anybody say the tire crack, I'm done. I'm tuned out.
Right.
I'm not paying attention anymore. It's so frustrating. It's especially when they're on a track and there's a tree and they're still using a flashlight.
Use the tree.
And I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, it's so
use the
simple.
tree and the wind light. You don't have to do the footage.
You don't have to drag anybody in. Like, it's so.
Well, same thing with roll racing. That's my biggest thing with roll racing is the start.
Yeah.
There's no way to make a fair start, so it's not ever an even race.
Yeah, it's never. I've never seen an even race.
Yeah, it was just like I don't know. I couldn't be the guy like you had to jump most of the time to win,
or go and argue. You either had to jump or be prepared to go and argue with the officials, which is.
And then it's someone's opinion. Anytime racing's coming down to someone's opinion, then you know,
Two guys
it's
standing
not
there
fair.
with the guns to see the mile an hour.
Right.
They give you the green light. And even TX2K is scary because they're like, we're going to make it longer. I'm like, why?
They shortened it this last year.
They
though.
finally
yeah,
shortened
they finally
it. So
shortened it.
they just want the big numbers.
Yeah.
You know, but it happened with Mike's car SCT the last time. We were in the final and there was a really false start. And it was like, all right, well, we'll just go, you know, ask the other guy. And it's like, well, he's going to say he was going 40. He just won the final. Like, there's no point of it. Of course he's going to say that. Like, I would say the same thing no matter what.
Yeah,
like,
go ask him.
You should have been pacing me.
Like, he's going to say he won. Like,
The one time when I roll raced in Darlington, I raced like twin turbo R8 and stuff, like fairly fast cars. And I was so bad at like I didn't want to take the jump. I didn't have a speedometer.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of like going off of them and they'd be way out on me. And then I was just like finally like spooled turbo and just like kind of come past them. But
yeah, I was never good at it.
Yeah, when roll racing first started, we did it a lot. Like
Yeah.
every single SCT event, we were.
Well, we
roll
just wanted
racing,
to
hot
race, so
lapping.
we'd
Yeah.
enter
Yeah.
everything that was available. If there was some other kind of racing that day, we would have entered that too.
Entered it.
We were just running the car.
But we did a lot of that. And it was fun. And then it
I
got
remember
too serious.
when you
on
beat
the
me
start.
and you went from the burnout box.
I got the trophy,
finals.
didn't I?
Well, we made it to the finals. We were at Bradenton. It was one race. It might have been a TRC thing or I think one of Vic's race.
Was it the TRC?
I think it was one of Vic's races.
could have been reunion maybe.
Yeah.
Did they do roll racing at the reunion?
I don't know. You got the best of show.
One of those
You got
COVID
the
one of those
best drag
COVID
car
races.
trophy.
Yeah, it was like, all right, well, we'll just split. Well, we'll run for fun. I think my car was like 10 mile an hour faster than his car at the time. And we go up
I knew
and
that.
Jim, I'm at the tree and there's Jim at the like 8th mile.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, all right, cool. Like, we're gonna split. Like, who cares? He's like on top of his car with the trophy. He got like the money on his ear. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how does this happen?
It's too slow and light, you know? You go on yellow, you don't go on green.
Listen, you gotta floor it as soon as you can.
It's like I thought it was like I would have reran it. I knew this was a serious deal.
You gotta floor it as soon as you can. At least do like a 30% to the loser split. You know, you don't have to do a 50-50 split.
It's my fault. I didn't think about the trophy.
Yeah.
You can't split the trophy.
I don't agree with full money splits, but maybe like a percentage, like you get 30% of the loser,
No, our group is
like
we split.
20%.
Like we got too many people we race with. We end up in the finals together. Like it's just goes without saying amongst our group because money is the first thing to get between people. It's like, hey, if any of us ends up in the finals, we'll race each other for sure, but we're just gonna split the money.
Yep.
So it's never an issue.
I like telling somebody I'm gonna split and then you just don't. There's no written agreement here.
Well, that happens sometimes too, but we try to keep it fair.
We don't split with anyone outside of our group, though.
No, we race
there's-
for it.
Yeah, we're racing for it. Like,
I can
but-
still get Bronte mad about TX2K when I had the hazards put on me. I could still get her angry about that one. There was no split there. That was all anger. It was.
That was rough.
But splitting, I mean, I don't know. I get it for like they just did that big bracket race and it was like $560,000 they split.
Did you see all the people there?
That's crazy.
Yeah, I would definitely want to split on that too.
Yeah, I would hope to.
Yeah, there's no.
Just risk it all.
Yeah, what is second place? Do they get anything?
They had to get some.
They split at like 8 cars.
True.
They split like early
Oh,
on.
early?
Like the winner got like 300,000 of like the 560,000. Like they split.
It's a real bracket race thing to do.
Yeah,
That's a real bracket.
they split early
Down
on.
to the quarters. Splitting down to the quarters.
It's a real bracket race thing.
Still, I mean, shoot, 300,000 to win. That's a sick payout.
That is a sick.
I mean, what's the biggest pot you've ever raced for? 10 grand? At
No,
FL2K?
Like, that was your boy.
MTI.
Oh
That's your
yeah.
boy.
Well, it was 30,000 if all the
Allegedly.
cars showed
It's
up.
not his boy. Let's be clear.
It wasn't a guaranteed. It wasn't advertised as a guaranteed payout that I saw. It was 30,000 if 30 cars showed up, and I think it was 12. It ended up being 12,000 to me to the winner of that race.
Okay, that's pretty spicy.
Yeah, I mean it's like a real money at that
Yeah.
point. It's like, oh, okay, this is actually I can buy something cool for my car. It always goes back to the car.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually like,
That's how I bought the lockup trans.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was the lockup trans.
It never. Yeah, I just gave it to Mark and was like, here you go.
Didn't even hit the
Yeah.
I was
account.
like,
Just went
here's a
straight
trans
over.
and a check from MITM. Make it a lockup.
yeah, just waiting there. The sponsors are just like, who's gonna win?
Right.
Who's gonna win this year?
Yeah, the only ones that really win are the sponsors.
Yeah, they end up with all the payout always, or the gas station on the way out.
But yeah, $10,000 is a lot of money.
$10,000
For
is huge.
A drag race.
Yeah.
So it's definitely makes the incentive much more to compete to win the races.
It's great too when people that I like seeing people that the money goes a lot further for.
Yeah.
You know, because like to some, like I mean, we've been around plenty of race cars, like even some of the Vipers and stuff, where it's like $10,000 doesn't cover the guys that they brought with them.
Right. Yeah. Their expense to be at the race to have the crew run their car or whatever the case
Yeah.
may be.
When you're like, oh, cool, 10 grand. I'm like, oh.
And it's gone.
Yep. Because
It's cool to see the payouts though now. Like I remember when we were racing, and we were happy with like $1,000 win, or like I remember we were just getting like a $600 win. You're like,
But we also wouldn't have paid $500 to enter
true, yeah. Entry fees
or $400 to enter.
Entry fees have gone up quite a bit.
Like
that is the tough part, because hitting the entry fee a little harder, you're just gonna discourage a ton of people to get in on that. It's like
the bigger events have got such a draw now from the people wanting to be there to race, just from the clout of it that you know they pay to be to race that event. So it's more of an experience, I think, than a race to maybe some of the people that know they don't have a shot at winning.
I think that's like World Cup is like a draw of like you just wanted, like they give you a
You have
sticker
to
when you
experience it,
qualify.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I did.
World Cup is cool.
I still have my,
This is-
you're a badass qualifier, or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah, the
It's
qualified
I gotta have it,
badass.
Yeah, I'm gonna try real hard this year. I got my butt kicked there twice.
Last year you kind of got yourself out, I feel like.
Yeah. No.
Like
no.
you didn't lose, you misjudged.
Well, no, I made the mistake of going there without anyone with me because it got down to the last minute. So I didn't have anyone to help me line up, or because of a scheduling conflict that I didn't know about until a week before the race.
Great.
Maybe if I would have known a week before the race.
Nobody even likes cruise ships, Jim.
And unfortunately, you know, a lot of people argue if you need someone line you up or not. And in these cars, I mean, you do.
Yeah.
I was in a bald spot.
Well, I think
Like, it was
the diversity of the cars that run.
Yeah, well, the prep
That's
is
what-
always a little difficult there because they change from slick to radial and stuff.
Temperature swing is
and then
strong.
It rained that morning, so it delayed the race. So then pushed the clock back. So then they didn't prep between every class like they were doing in qualifying. So the track got a little more beat up than it was the previous days. It was kind of like a perfect storm. Now looking back, always you see what happened pretty clearly. I got up to
After you run though.
Wasn't
Yeah.
Jay standing there on the starting line next to your car?
He was. And after I ran, everyone was like, "Yeah, I was." You know, he was in I was gonna stop him. You know,
Because
but it's no one's.
no.
That's the worst.
No, I knew.
part
I
of
like
it.
looked at the video and the car left, and it looked like this table, like the one tire, like it didn't have a like it wasn't. I didn't was racing a car that went. What'd it go like 720 or something? The GTR, like
Yeah.
you know, we had went 650. I had like a 360 foot in it. It wasn't. I mean, I guess I could have slowed it down even more, but at that point, I didn't know it was going to be on a bare starting line. Like
you were trusting the track was going to be similar enough to qualifying, where
Right.
you wouldn't have to drastically change your car.
If I was 6 inches one way, like it would have just been a different story. Like it was just a bad. It's racing, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the expression. That's the saying because that's how it goes.
I was
Number one
heartbroken.
qualifier doesn't always win.
Watching it live.
Oh yeah.
I was on the cruise ship watching it live, and I was just put down my
Oh, you were
phone.
on a cruise.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I put down my phone, and that's going to be rough.
I tried to forget all of that. It was such a bad memory. That's right. It
Well, I was actually
it was
very
on the
happy.
bachelor party
Well,
cruise.
let's be honest, I was on a high, too, because I was like,
Yeah.
number one qualifier, just
Well,
went out. I was like,
Oh
dang
yeah,
it. I
Keith.
was like,
Yeah, because
I was
Keith
like,
did the
yeah.
same thing. He went up before me. Keith Ray. He was number one qualifier. I was number 2.
Yeah. I was like, holy crap, this is great, you know. And then Brett did it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna put the phone down. Like, and I know a message is coming.
And
next.
then we went down, and then the tractors came out, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, there's a problem."
yeah, and they prepped right behind him.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching that and I was like, Jay, help him, Jay. I was like,
I
do
saw
something.
multiple people there that knew what to look for on a track. They could have
Yeah.
at least said something.
No, yeah, I mean, it's over now, right?
Yeah.
All I can do is try to be better. The car is much better now than it used to be. I'm pretty sure I could do the street stuff we were doing with Mike's car with it at this point. We have enough tune-ups to get it to go down.
You made it through a round of no preps racing too.
I actually went to a no
Yeah,
prep
you
race
went to no prep?
in Orlando and didn't even do a burnout because
Wow.
Why didn't it do it?
no. So
What?
Yeah, it was a bad deal.
it was like, yeah, let's go to this no prep race, and they're like, oh, okay, we're actually gonna scrape, and
Yeah.
because every no prep race at OSW is usually like they just got done running test and tune the night before.
Yeah.
So you get there and it's like they just
Yeah,
don't
like,
do
oh.
anything, but it's
You just-
OSW.
Like,
Go
oh,
out of the
I'll just
groove
turn it
enough
down and I'll be
and-
fine.
Yeah, like it'd be cool. Just go have fun.
This one.
And they like scraped it bare, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. And they're like, yeah, it's off the trailer. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like,
Wow, great.
And run a radial.
yeah, I was like, oh, yeah.
Only car on the
It was
radio.
on a radial, and went to do a burnout, and there was like a lot of people on the starting line. You know how they
it
do,
kicked, right?
and it
Yeah.
kicked real bad. So then usually I just kind of power through it and then straighten out and go. But there was so many people that I couldn't. I probably would have Mustang weeked them.
And they, only one burnout. That's
That
what
was
they
the
said.
kicker.
They
So
said,
then like if I rolled forward,
One burnout.
if you roll past like the little
yeah,
wall,
and I'm sitting in the car, and
then
I'm
you
like,
can't do a second burnout.
I'm like, oh, that's it. And it did just like I might have been water on one of the tires still.
You needed 3 guys to hold your wing and then run as you
It was literally
roll
like water
through.
was only on one side of the tire because it just went. That's it. And then
Yeah.
you're like, then you just stop, right? You're like, he just turned the wheel and kind of rolled out of it. And you're like, oh, it's past the wall.
But
Yeah.
then the car made a pass.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a pretty pass, but it went to the 8th mile.
And
Then
you-
everyone was like, "We're betting on this car." Like,
Yeah.
after that, like we're betting on this car.
Is it just because you had such a light tune-up in it, or because your traction control setup is also so well dialed in at this point?
That was trash control.
That was all
That was
Yeah.
drive shaft curve. Like it sounded mad. The valve train was not happy.
Engine RPM didn't.
The valve train was not happy.
Didn't
with
do
that
anything
run.
you would expect it to do.
Like it just, the settings we had in it made it go down the track. I mean, it was slow around like a 5.0 or something, but it was probably fast enough to like do really well that day.
400 feet out sounded sweet.
Yeah.
Could you put
in the
a
28.
315 on that car, or would it just be not even?
Well, we just have to adjust for it.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about it just because it's.
I mean, if they let you,
it's an advantage. The World Cup this year, I could have one on my car.
Small tire.
Sick week and all that stuff, I could have one on my car. So the only thing is you don't just put the bigger tire on there and now you have more tire. Like it's a taller tire, so it'd be a gear change. The ride height changes in the back, 4-link angles change, pinion height changes. So it would need to be tested and probably adjusted. But then at that point, it will be faster on a 315. There's no doubt about that.
yeah,
Not as cool.
And then you would have a little more cushion for worse tracks.
yeah,
But we're small tire guys.
Small tire.
Yeah.
Yeah,
small
but-
tire
we
guys.
even had the white wall small tires on our street driving tires.
but that's so difficult because, like, I don't know. When I think of small tire, I think of radial, like
Yeah.
Have you seen the
235.
315.
I
Stood
still-
next one off the car.
I get it, but like I
Still
still
31.
somewhat see that
30 in
as
his tire.
I know, but I still somewhat see that as a small
is.
tire.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not. It's
Yeah.
not a big tire. Well, no, it's not a small tire. It gotta be smaller than 29. Like it's not a small
yeah,
tire.
28,
29 is
yeah.
a small tire.
It's so
But it's not a
tough.
flo-
No
it's
one
not-
considers that
it's
a
not a
small
floppy
tire.
tire.
Like no form of racing.
No,
considers
I
that a
don't,
small tire.
I get what you're saying, but I also don't consider it a big tire.
Yeah. But I mean,
So it's
think
It's
like-
a big radial. It's a big tire for a radial.
It's like this weird in between.
yeah, it's a big tire.
It's a big tire radial.
That's why there's 315, right? That's why there's RVW with
But-
315 and then Pro 275,
and-
right? There's a difference.
Jay will probably fire me if I don't put it on my car before World Cup because
Well.
he's like, "Why aren't you doing this? Remember last year?" But we're to the point now where I need to. FL2K is going to be on 28, so if I changed all this stuff, I would need to change it back for FL2K, and I don't have time this month to do that because of all the other cars I'm working on for FL2K
Yeah.
and doing some stuff to my car.
Jay does say things firmly and forcefully, but calmly at the same time.
Well, he's-
Every time I've ever talked to him, it's very like it's a calm, but you
Direct
feel
to the
that that's a
point.
very strong opinion.
Well, he knows what the outcome is. He can see it, and he knows what the right decision is, but he wants you to make the decision.
That makes sense.
I'll tell you, my biggest gripe with the 315 and all these other classes, because the rules were never around that tire. The rules always were 28s. And then they let certain people in.
Started with the Vipers.
Started with the Vipers.
Yeah.
And then it kept in.
But it's just because they can't make it work on a
Correct.
20.
IRS car.
If it's
you
IRS,
can run a
yeah.
315, right? No big deal.
I would vote
But
that's
then they
fine.
started opening it up because they were playing favorites, right? And it's like, I just don't feel like that's the right way to go about it. My personal opinion.
I like that the Viper guys said it looks better. That's why they liked it.
It does actually look better.
I know.
It does actually
But
look
like,
And they're like, okay, you can run it. All right.
it just looks better. I'm
Yeah.
like, what?
when I saw Ned's car on a 28, I was like, yeah, it doesn't really look as good. When it's on 315.
It's still so funny though, because that's such a weird like way to try to
But I
make
think-
the
but I
rules
think
work
that's
for
a good
you.
equalizer, right? Like they got IRS, like
Yeah.
give them a 315.
But for World Cup this year, I feel like we have enough car on a 28. So the advantage wouldn't be ET, would be track conditions, and more tire for
Potential
bad track
consistency,
conditions.
Yeah.
For sick week next year, probably going to be on a 315. Jim may not be my co-driver if I do this, but
And why is this? Why would you decide to because it's not a small tire anymore? You're not about it.
Well,
I
like
love 28s.
yeah,
It's just me. It's just personally me.
It's a great
I'm
tire.
a 28 guy. That's it.
See, Mickey Thompson is discontinuing their 235.
Yeah, the 20. I think that's cool too.
But the 235s are cool.
It is, but I mean, it's not like prevalent. Like Midwest, right? Like they used to have the X235, I think it was, which was a really cool class, but it got dominated just like Pro 275 does now, right? They just
Devin
went, like,
Vanderhoof said this tire doesn't matter.
something. Yeah, 380 something.
Devin just made that tire just seem like it didn't matter at all.
Devin's interview about the floppy tires versus the radials is by far one of the best videos you can watch.
It should be played like a commercial on
It
Sick
should be.
Week.
Yeah.
Mickey Thompson's.
Yeah.
It should be.
Just like pops in there like, oh, we got some downtime, and then you just hear him.
It's on repeat. That's it. It's just on repeat.
It was pretty direct.
At least at like World Cup or something too, where you do have
same.
to race some of those floppy
right.
tires.
Yeah.
Because, well, I guess the guys on floppy tires usually don't speak English anyways. It's kind of does seem like a common issue.
Yeah.
So we'll see on the 315 thing. It's not out of the realm because it will fit on my car easy. If my car can be faster, there's a lot of talk about around Coyote records and all this stuff. So if we're trying to get ET out of it,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not against it, obviously, but
Yeah.
I would love to do it on a 28.
I just, it's so weird because it's in that gray area. I don't consider it a big tire.
Mm-hmm.
It's close to the small tire stuff.
It is. I mean,
Not
it's-
everybody can run it. Like if you have like my car on a 275, like I can't put
like he couldn't
Yeah,
go on his
I
car.
can't,
yeah.
There's no.
It
just-
just fit the wheel well.
doesn't make sense. Like I could not do that at all.
Yeah.
Stock wheel tubs on that deal.
But I think for next year it makes sense because we got some pretty big plans. Like
Oh, for Sick Week?
for Sick Week. I think.
Yeah,
We
first
had-
year we went in with the plan to finish. This year we're going to go in with much bigger plan.
Yeah.
I'm excited
knowing
for
what
that.
we know
Yeah.
now, it's
There's a lot, and especially on your car, like I know you've had goals to set with it, and you always set those goals, so it'd be cool to see how crazy it can get on Sick Week next year, because I'm sure next year is going to be wild with fast cars. I would like to see Devin try to run with you guys, and
I think he will.
he
because
tried
he's-
on. Well, he no.
Well,
I
he
don't wanna
put
say
he did 6
He
summer
did-
on a
yeah,
275.
Yeah, he didn't have the same track.
But I'd like him to,
conditions
I'd like him to
that
run
way, yeah.
with us on that.
that would be
Sure.
cool. I think
Yeah.
that would be a fun deal.
Yeah,
That's a cool car. Like
I mean,
just
there-
in general, that's a cool car.
As far as other cars on Sick Week to worry about is beating you, that's probably about it.
when Garrett when he gets his car
Yeah,
dialed back in
Yeah.
yeah.
with the new combo.
I know it's tough. It's a tough one. That's a cool race with a lot of really fast cars. That'll be cool to see a deal like that. Well, let's talk about salt flats a little because that was Jim's deal.
That was fun.
Jim was
That was
deep in the salt.
deep in the water.
Yeah, it was like what was it, Burning Man out there.
It was rough. So like that whole deal,
So reverse
incredible experience.
to what you started with doing,
Yeah.
and like you started with helping somebody on a salt flat car.
Yeah, so Jay asked me to go out to Arizona and help one of the white goose bar guys. I built a turbo manifold, downpipe, a couple things, and just worked on some of the other cars, just for Jay, right? Just going to help out. Then that turned into, hey, let's pull the Streamliner down here. We got to put a Liberty in it, So then we started working on that car, doing all that, getting it ready. And then when we got there,
And the Streamliner is the 2J one that
2J twin turbo,
long
moved into-
dude.
dude, that thing's long. With
Yeah.
30, what was it, 30 feet?
I think it's
Yeah,
30.
31 feet.
He's like a pain in the ass to
Well,
deal
the worst
with.
part is when you got
Hard
tools on
work
the
on
other
it.
side of the thing. You got to walk all the way around it each time. You're better off like when it's on the stands, just crawling under and getting up and going.
Need like
over
one of those above ground pool ladders that go like over it.
It was unique.
Yeah, because especially when I was doing the turbo kit on the one side, I was like, you'd always have to walk around the whole car just to do that side, and then the fab table's on the other area. So you're like,
Just separates a whole shop. So
yeah.
30-foot car working on to do the salt flat
do
stuff.
the salt flats.
Trying for the goal of
400.
400.
Yes. That's it. It's been 331,
Yeah.
something like that, and like.
They weren't sure they were going to go 400 because of
This,
the
yeah.
aero of the car, but they were going to probably try to approach it.
That's interesting. So it was going to be aero issued,
Yeah.
not like
Stability.
power limited or
Yeah.
anything, or traction, I guess, isn't really a thing.
Traction is a huge thing.
Is it
They
a-
run smooth tires?
I was gonna say, then why do they run tires like that?
That's why they need salt.
Why are they like this?
So they can go 400.
Yeah, it's the only thing that'll hold up.
There's
So-
not a lot of
oh.
tires rated.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Well, and it's sustained. Like we go 200, but it's for a
Yeah.
millisecond.
Yeah.
Those guys go 5 miles.
Because even like the Mickey Thompson 275s aren't rated for, like the front runners aren't rated for what we do with them.
But it's just, again,
it's
sustained speed
sustained.
Yeah.
and weight. Those cars are heavy.
That's interesting. I didn't realize it was a traction issue, but you can't have a different tire because they don't make it.
Well, and it's a completely opposite way of thinking of drag racing. They add weight to everything. They fill the chassis with weight, right? Like they'll stand up the chassis on end and fill them full of lead.
Just like the roll bars.
Yeah,
Just
everything.
like the lower
They will-
bars.
yeah,
Well,
they
that
fill
2J was
lead.
probably a 1,500 horsepower engine. It's not necessarily about horsepower out there.
It's
Yeah,
just about
efficiency.
Sustaining it and-
efficiency, and cooling.
And then traction. That's your biggest.
That's so weird. Yeah, because like I never realized that the cars. Yeah, there's not really many tires that'll go 400 safely, and I don't know how hot. Like I guess like there's probably a lot of heat that gets from the
Yeah.
salt, and you're just
Salt's
melting
not a
it.
smooth
Well, that's-
surface.
Well, you think about the hypercars, the Bugattis and stuff.
Yeah.
They're tire limited. Like all those cars are
Mm-hmm.
tire limited right now at 250, 260.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a stressful conversation Michelin deals with all the time. They're like, please, we don't want to be involved in this anymore. Even though they're the only ones that can get that phone call, like Pirelli or Michelin, they're just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
please leave us alone on this. But even like the Formula One cars, they're going,
They
go fairly
they go
fast.
200 on the backs.
yeah.
go.
But they're also
400. It's only half.
Yeah.
Right?
changing the tires
Yeah.
every.
Smooth surfaces or semi-smooth surfaces, right?
Yeah, so you guys are trying to do that on salt, a completely
The tires look what, about this wide?
Yeah.
7,
About
8
Yeah,
inches?
pretty-
8 inches
yeah.
wide.
Yeah.
What tires is it? Like,
It's
is
a
it?
Mickey Thompson.
Is it a Mickey?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's how he
And
started,
they're,
so it makes
like,
sense.
really expensive. And some of them tear them up each run.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, 'cause the salt's super coarse.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Depending on how
And
the condition changes.
sidewall, they'll tear the bands out of the sidewall and stuff.
So, you guys bring this car out there. How do you get this thing started? Like, how do you like? Were you part of like getting it rolling? Like, do the
So-
truck and like push it or
So
whatever?
they have a push truck there. Most of them, so they bring out, either open trailers or, some of them have enclosed, but your whatever vehicle you usually tow the vehicle with is also your push vehicle. Now, in their case, since they do it as the White Goose Bar team, they usually just dedicate one truck. And then that way it's already set up on the front.
They have
with the
multiple
push
cars.
bar. Yeah. Because
Hmm.
they had 4 cars. 4 cars total this year.
It's like a gentleman's race too, where they're like,
Oh, yeah.
you're just doing it like for the spirit of doing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
it's-
probably more of a drag and drive feel. I haven't been out there yet.
It
but,
is,
Like
yeah.
a version of that.
It's a different kind of racing in general. Like, it's more laid back to a certain point, right? Like, your build up to there, like, everyone, you just walk around, chit chat. So many unique people, but also unique backgrounds. Like, you just find guys that are just randomly doing stuff, like on motorcycles or putting them in different chassis or anything. And then you got guys that are like the Speed Demon crew, right? Like, they come out there, they just want the hot rod trophy, right? They're trying to hit the fastest pass every time.
And it's kind of like bleeds over from that California like hot rodding mecca of the world. Kind of bleeds over into that.
I was in shock at how many 50s, 30s, 40s, and 50s vehicles there were, just in general driving around.
Like old white wall tires, just
It
kind of
was-
like.
It was so cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
It was so cool. Like, just, and then like, lower trucks, things like that, but like all old 60s, 50s trucks, like it was.
It seems like this year there was more people than I knew. I've never known that many people to go out there, and then this year I see like 10 people I knew were there. I was like, what the
starting
heck?
to pop up.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's-
Yeah. Well, it's starting to get some internet exposure, and then 1320 went out there. So it'd be good for the salt
Yeah,
flat in
it
general.
needs it. Like it
It's
needs.
an older generation
Yeah.
out there.
I was talking to Keith Turk at Sick Week, and he was just telling me how whiny drag racers are and how much better the salt flat guys are. That was his whole thing, was just drag racers are whiny.
Tech at the salt flats, that's like an hour-long process. Like,
Really?
they go through the whole thing. I mean, they're checking every single detail in, right? Good for them because it's really fast, right? But like, I mean, everything down to a sticker that shows where your on and off button is.
Yeah, I
Like,
wouldn't-
they're
I
like,
wouldn't
here,
do good
take
in
the
that
sticker.
world.
You missed this, and then they point a little arrow to it, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it runs 10s.
yeah, exactly.
That's my move.
Right, yeah.
They're like, how fast will you go? I'm like, It may crack off a 9. I don't know.
I still get nervous going to tech. My car's completely legal.
Yeah.
Like I still get the like, oh man, I hope it goes good. Like jitters, like because the other car was never close to legal.
Same.
But in this now I'm starting to 6.0. Like it's fine.
There's plenty of races I avoid because I know the tech's gonna be too serious.
I still have PTSD from tech.
Yeah, even like sick week and stuff. People are like, take your car on sick week. I'm like, I just don't even want to go through that process.
Just your car 850 certified, like. When we first did drag, or what do we do?
Drag week.
Drag week?
Yeah.
Dude, that was like all the little stuff, like having a battery box contained and stuff like that.
That was like one of our biggest challenges with the battery box. That was a pain in the butt.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you have to
Just
have it sealed.
little things like that. I've always felt that the rules are designed in a way where they can make you not race if they wanted to. If they really feel that they don't want you to race, they'll find a way to make you not race.
Probably. Yeah.
That's how I've always felt they were written that way.
You just got to the SFI stuff. Like, where's your sticker for your flywheel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if a tech guy really didn't like you, he can make you race or not race
Well,
that
drag
day.
week they asked for that. Like, remember we had to write down a couple of the numbers, and he was like, I was like, I still run a stock flywheel. You know, and they're like, oh, okay, well then I guess you don't need that there. You know, you're like, oh, okay.
Ford certified.
Yeah, exactly. It's fine. It's OEM.
But then they're also checking neutral safety switches and stuff too, and like, you know,
Which is
horns, blinkers, yeah, which is fine. And horns and blinkers is normal, but
My
like,
harnesses on sick week were expired, so they said I had to use my stock seatbelt. I was like, this makes a lot of sense, guys. They were like 3 months expired.
We were out in Colorado and we went to Pueblo for a small tire race because the SCT thing got canceled.
There's a lot of meth out there too.
I heard that. Everyone like as soon as I said I was going there, everyone was like texting me. They're like, "Hey, don't stay there.
No.
Get through that town quick." I'm like, "I'm just going to the track." I'm getting
Swanstrom's
out."
a good example.
Yeah,
Got his truck
yeah,
stolen
got
from
his
that
truck stolen,
area.
yeah.
But through tech and I had it was 8th mile, so my car is dual chutes. So I leave if I'm running 8th mile, just use one chute because I'm not going over 200, and 2 chutes would slow you down way too much. Right, and they're like, oh, you can't race like this. If you have the equipment on your car, it has to be functional. And I'm like, with like 8th mile, like the prep there was like nothing. Like we're not gonna be going. Like I'm only gonna use 1 chute. I'm not gonna use 2 chutes. And like, well, you won't be able to race. So it was like you said with your seatbelt. And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna use any chutes then because I'm not throwing both of them. There was like a 30-mile-an-hour crosswind that day too. And but yeah, like you said, they could probably find something.
Every no prep guy or every no time guy, when they pull up there, the pin's still in their chute.
Right.
Every one of them. I'm like, why leave the pin in? Like, what if you need it? What if your brakes fail? Like, they always do that. All of them. I don't understand that, but it's like the rules say I gotta have the chute, but it's just bolted on. It's gutted. There's nothing in there.
Probably not even real.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at James's, something's probably
gotta
weird
keep it
going on
light.
there.
Yeah, well, chutes are heavy for no time cars.
Yeah, I mean, his 240 is probably 2,000 pounds. So every
with him.
balsa wood chute. I've seen some trans tunnel stuff that I'm like, is that balsa wood? I think,
A hologram of a parachute.
Yeah. Do some crazy stuff for that. It's like old school NASCAR where they like do everything for that little bit of
drilling the roll cage.
Yeah. So you're gonna go out to the salt flats again this year, right? Because
Maybe. We'll see. So
Try to drive
End of
something?
the year. Yeah, so
That's just in a couple weeks.
yeah, so likely that won't happen this year. Like just with the kid and everything and, you know, work.
is
But
it wet out there still, or is it pretty
They
dry?
say it takes like 4 to 5 months for that place to dry out.
Yeah,
It is a
because
lake.
the
Usually
salt-
if it's wet in August, then it's not real good in September.
Because the salt doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't seep into the ground. Like when we drove through a foot of it with our RV, and it is solid. Yeah, that poor RV was just.
It was not from RV share.
No, we spent like $25 at the car wash to get it all off. You know.
Yeah, that's hard on stuff. Everything.
It was caked like snow.
Yeah.
You were like, oh, I've never done anything like that. But yeah, you were driving through just, I mean, pure brine.
Can you feel it when you're there? Like, can you just like feel like it, like you're breathing and stuff that you're like around like
I didn't
copious
notice any
amounts
of
of salt?
that, but it was. But when you were walking, it was like concrete. Like it was. I didn't know what to expect. It is literally like concrete.
It seems so cool out there. It seems like such
It
a
is.
must experience deal. You
Well,
guys
like-
should take a Mustang out there.
Yeah.
Die.
Take Snot Rocket out
I
there.
can't go that
Yeah,
fast.
just flat spin the whole time. Just,
You could probably convince Moretti to do it.
Right, yeah.
Probably.
Mike can be down.
I can probably do it on
Mike,
slicks
go on the
too.
soft flats.
Yeah, exactly. He might be interested.
He's definitely my guy that's down for anything.
Imagine the turbo in that thing after like
Can you imagine the car after a mile?
Yeah, after a mile of
Front
wide open
bumper,
throttle.
fenders, hoods shaking.
Yeah, it would be bad.
There's plenty of people that I know where you could probably convince them fairly easily to take their regular car out there.
I don't know that it would last. Like, just like after the salt flats. Like, all these cars that are made, like, all the panels removed, and they spend like 3 or 4 days just cleaning all the salt out of them. Because if not, everything just rusts. Like, everything just rusts.
Just leave the car there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's literally like... Yeah.
call it a day.
Yeah.
It's like
Just a
rental.
one-time
Just leave
use.
it out there.
I'll just take Chip out there.
I could never...
Just
sorry, bud.
abandon it.
If you're here next year, I'll run you.
Have a couple parts you take off and go home with.
It was... The amount of rust that you saw out there was pretty impressive.
Imagine.
But the one car that you guys have is like, it's basically an airplane without wings.
Oh, the Streamliner?
Yeah.
Streamliner is...
Which is scary because you know that it's designed to fly.
Well, no,
but
so
it's
that
just
guy
missing-
Built, so Brad is the owner. He built it in his garage. He built the whole thing. He did the sheet metal work.
It's
Like,
very comforting.
built the whole thing in his garage. Designed the steering in his, like...
Yeah, there's some clips on the Real Street
Yeah.
video. He kept having to extend his garage as the car got longer because it developed into
and
being
that
that long.
car started off with a Hayabusa engine in it.
Yeah.
And then when they
Yeah.
put the 2J, they stretched it 4.5 feet. So, like, they were like, oh, we'll just cut it here and just add that in there.
Some cheatered up stuff right there. Like some Honda racing.
Just what you
And
do.
just extend it a little bit. Yeah.
But, like, most things there, like, they're not like you have this huge race shop that just builds all their stuff. Most of these guys build in their home, build in their house.
Yeah, I mean, who's going to
garage.
build that too?
I mean, there's a couple shops that do it, right? Like Speed Demon stuff. Like you have, you know, like there's
Can't be
guys
super
that do
common.
it. I
Well,
wouldn't
no,
think
once
so.
a year race.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you want to build a twin turbo Coyote car, I could give you 50 shops that'll do it.
Correct.
If you want to go salt flat racing, it's a little questionable.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it seems cool. I'd like to go out there at some point to see
It's an
it.
experience. Well, so the racing part's an experience, and then if you get an RV, which I would suggest you do that, sleeping in the mountains is incredible too. Like just the view, and like you're just driving up a mountain, and you just park on the side.
And you didn't even get to see the good racing.
No,
right?
no, because it was so I left on Tuesday, so I only got to see him go down, just in the morning,
Yeah, imagine it's cool when there's like 5 days of racing. or
and
how many
not
other
have
days they race.
and they only had one course, and it was a shortened course too. It was only a 3-mile course this year because the water from the night before, the wind picked up and blew all the water back on the track. So they usually have 2 tracks. If they get lucky, they'll do 3. But they have the fast track, and then you have a little bit slower one for the new guys.
Don't they have like a diesel contest too, where like the diesel guys do it?
Yeah.
Which
Well,
to me sounds really insane.
There's a class or a record for almost anything you can
The
imagine.
diesel stuff though, I mean, how do you even?
Everything
For
goes
5
like,
miles.
Yeah. They can't even get on the chip without blowing up the converter. Like, I don't know how you can. Like, I've seen people balloon their converter just trying to spool a diesel.
Yeah,
That seems like a tough one.
it's risky.
Yeah. Oh man, it'd be a lot of carnage. We talked about the documentary on was it Jesse?
Jesse, yeah.
Yeah, that thing was crazy because that was an actual airplane.
Yeah.
That was like a World War
So
II airplane.
So I talked to some of the guys out there too. Actually, my dad did. And like some of the stuff that you learn from those guys, like that wasn't at a sanctioned event that they did that run at. So like the claims and stuff like that, like it makes it, you're like, oh, it's fastest woman. But like you start learning the more details, like that car was never certified by any of the certification, right? So like all these safety equipment and things like that, like you're like, oh, that wasn't done. You're like, that's crazy. To
that
think
does.
about.
I mean, that kind of correlates with what we do because there's debates on that with records. If your car didn't do it in competition, is it a real record?
For an actual class, it's not.
Yeah.
Like if it's an X275 record, then it has to be done in X275 at a race because then they protect your car.
But even like fastest Coyote or fastest K
are those
series
real records?
Like
Yeah,
nobody even
is
pays
that-
attention.
Is this really a record?
I like to try to get little wins here and there. I will take a turbo size record. I'll take anything I can get. Weight, it doesn't matter.
Well, engine records are easier to police because you just look in the hood and you see that engine. Where if
Yeah.
you're claiming an X275 record, there's a lot more rules that are going to come along with that, I guess.
But even like
Yeah,
turbo
it's
size stuff now gets super finicky because there's so much cheatered up turbos.
It's always been that way, though. Like, I mean, that's why turbo classes are hard to regulate.
It's why we have cool turbos.
Yeah, agreed.
People
Yeah, we
experimenting
get
with
all like
not using stock ones.
clip down turbos, like things like that. That's all stuff that was happening like 5, 6, 10 years ago. Like this is nothing new. It's production already.
Yeah. Well, that's the other debate too. Is now like the production legal turbos are also not legal turbos but they're
Well,
they are, but they're
They'll
not.
have rule changes, you know, like if the class gets too fast, they'll have to limit something.
Precision seemed to do a really good job about that, playing in the gray area a little bit in the last year or two.
With the next gen stuff.
Yeah.
We're like releasing a World Cup turbo.
Yeah, even all the Honda stuff, they've seemed like they've. I mean, you sell a ton of turbo. You guys deal with more turbos than anybody at Real Street. Same with like Induction has massive selection. Probably Florida probably has more precision turbos than any other place, and they're built in like Indiana.
Well, I think we have more turbos in precision, like in stock.
Yeah.
Like-
It's like an Induction has a ton of turbos at all times too, so it's like between the two Florida
We'll
shops,
throw a rock.
there's like not many 2J shops outside of Florida. They're mostly all in Florida.
yeah, that's
Florida,
true.
Alabama.
Right around that area, right?
Yeah, there's not like a whole lot of that, and
I guess
with
Texas too. I mean, Texas has a couple.
Not really 2J shops, though.
yeah,
I think it's more like an LS truck kind of place.
Yeah.
Texas really likes to claim a lot, but I feel like they overclaim a lot of
They
their
gotta get out
stuff.
of Texas.
They just love to claim things.
Like when was like, how often do Texas cars even win TX 2K? Maybe one or two out of all the class wins.
Didn't win my class this year. Didn't win your class this year.
Oh no! I finally won.
Yeah, same. You had a 4-year streak though. I had a 2-year streak.
Yeah, it's usually Florida that ends up winning it, and I don't know.
Yeah,
Even
Corey, Chanley, and all them
Yeah.
guys won last year.
We're blessed and cursed with so many fast cars in Florida, just because you have to be really fast to be competitive.
Yeah.
in a lot of the similar classes.
yeah, I feel like maybe because we're also lucky with really good tracks.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a curse. Every time
Well,
we go
yeah.
out to a track, the track prep, you're like, oh, you're like, I just want a way to do this like a standard prep. And then you go out to the next track and you're like, oh my God, we can't even run on this.
I tell everyone that story. Like when we first started racing out of state, and it's like called Vic Up, and I'm like, I hate you.
Yeah, you've spoiled us.
Yeah, like we got to relearn how to do things.
I try to avoid traveling too much just because one, there's so many good events at FL2 at BMP and OSW is even adding a few, and I hope to see South Georgia now with new management add some more like street style stuff. I think they could do a point series between the three would be really nice.
Yeah, it would be neat.
Something would be fun like that, but you don't have to travel that far from here.
Yeah.
And then if you do want to go to an event, they're all very far. So you either decide to stay close or you prepared to go the far distance.
I like the Atlanta one because it was kind of like that split distance where it wasn't too far.
Yeah.
The Atlanta SCT.
But I mean, you guys went to Steel, and you guys said you'd go back again.
Oh, Steel was awesome. Steel
Darlington,
was BMP.
too.
Like Steel was, it just was like you're at Bradenton. Track was good. Like
Yep.
the feel of it was cool. I like traveling because just going to the different cities, like, because traveling, a lot of people like traveling anyway. So, you don't necessarily get to see the places in detail when you're racing, but you get to go there,
And
meet
the
the people,
variety
see
of
the
cars.
tracks. Like we race at a lot of different tracks now. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that does make it nice to be able to have a reason to go to these other cities. I did so much of that I just try to avoid it now.
Yeah, well, at some point maybe
you get burned out from it.
Burnt out from it. Sure.
It's very easy to get burnt out. I mean, especially when you're just running like the same cars at multiple places.
Yeah,
which
that does suck,
often
you
does
know.
happen. A lot of the cars that do travel to a lot of these different races, like a lot of the streetcar takeovers. I mean, those probably the best events to follow around if you're going to try to like
Agreed.
chase some events around. And if you're in like the center of the country, you kind of can chase any streetcar takeover pretty well. Those are probably the ones to chase, especially if you got like a stick shift car right now. I think their class is ripe for somebody to come in and beat up on that.
Yeah, you wouldn't need a super, super fast car or something consistent.
Yeah. Well, let's get to the track, guys, because we got to go test my car, Jim's car, mostly Jim's car. But yeah, that's about it, guys. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you guys for coming on. This was a good time.
Absolutely.
Do you want to promote anything? Anything good going on? Your YouTube channel?
Yeah, I mean, my channel is never going to be like I'm not planning on being a YouTuber by any means, but I feel like we have so much good content with my car and the travel and that we do that just to get it out there so people can follow it.
It's fun to
just
document stuff,
right?
yeah.
You document, you look back on it. So it's just Brett LaSala that
On
my personal
Instagram.
pages. Yeah, Instagram. Get me there. Real
Big
Street
Instagram
Performance.
guy now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got like 20K followers.
Oh,
He came out of nowhere. He
come
doesn't
out
even
here?
post. He's got like 2 posts.
come out here and beat up on
I
people?
know.
You need a fast green car.
Yeah, that's it. Just get a green car and instantly get followers.
Well, Jim's car is so subtle looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like You don't think much of it when you're just
another
kind of
white
looking
Mustang.
at it. Yeah. Even
But-
since I met you, you've like reverted to make it look more OEM.
Putting the wing on was the worst part. It hurt me.
It's a pro mod. It says underneath it. I put the
It does,
sticker.
it does.
Put the
Yo.
sticker on it.
Wings are a flex, dude. You know.
Complex.
But yeah, definitely follow us for FL2K World Cup,
Yep.
and then Mod Nats directly after World Cup down here.
Yes.
And then this winter, we're gonna try to go pretty fast with my car.
Sixes with a Christmas tree on the roof.
To prepare for Sick Week. Oh yeah, Christmas tree race.
Yeah.
There too.
Yeah.
Christmas tree race is a good one. I have a baby due the same day. But I've never done good at that
So
race
you're
anyways.
gonna be- I mean, James did it. Why can't you do it?
I've never done good at that race anyways, so it's a blessing. It is true. It's better off that way. But also your team.
Yeah, Team
Team
MSR.
MSR.
Yeah.
We didn't even touch on Team MSR that there's 40 Coyote cars that all go real fast.
Yeah, that's right.
And then one guy that follows around with a 2J. We don't know what he's up
Oh yeah, we
to.
got TJ got a couple Honda guys now. We got Pablo's in there with his Honda.
Perfect. Me and Pablo.
Really diversifying.
Yeah, you know, we want to be equal opportunity.
We have about as good of luck. I think his might be a little better than mine at times.
And you guys say the same thing at the end. It's like, I should just have a Mustang. Like, what am I doing?
Just get a Coyote.
All right, I'm done with this. I'll see you guys later.